I will start us off, and if we'd all rise to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. All right. There being a quorum present, I hereby call this annual town meeting to order, the 6th day of May, 2025. Is there a return of the warrant? Annual town meeting first.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Pursuant to the within warrant, I have notified and warned the inhabitants of the town of Townsend by posting up attested copies of the same at Memorial Hall, 272 Main Street at the Center, West Townsend Reading Room, 264 Dudley Road in West Townsend, the Police Station, 70 Brookline Road, Harbor Fire Station, 41 Main Street, and Harbor Church, 80 Main Street, at least 7 days before the date of the meeting, as within directed. Signed, Michelle Dole, Constable of Townsend.
Okay, the warrant has been read and returned, and we can open the annual town meeting. However, I understand we do have a special town meeting, so I'd entertain a motion to recess the annual town meeting until we resolve the special town meeting. Is there a motion? All right. Is there a second? Second. All right. Has motion been made to recess the annual town meeting and convene the special town meeting? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. All right. Is there a return of the warrant for the special town meeting?
Yes, Mr. Moderator. Pursuant to the within warrant, I have notified and warned the inhabitants of the town of Townsend by posting up attested copies of the same at Memorial Hall, 272 Main Street at the Center, West Townsend Reading Room, 264 Dudley Road in West Townsend, the Police Station, 70 Brookline Road, Harbor Fire Station, 41 Main Street, and Harbor Church, 80 Main Street, at least 14 days before the date of the meeting, as within directed. Signed, Michelle Dole, Constable of Townsend.
All right. The return of the warrant being read, I declare the special town meeting open this 6th day of May, 2025. Before we do get started right into the meat of business, I want to remind that any visitors should be seated in my left, the right-hand side of the hall. The meeting is being recorded by Townsend Community Access Media, hopefully everybody will find a seat. I don't think we'll have a problem with that tonight. I'd like to introduce the folks up here on the stage. There's our new town clerk, Harrison Mayotte, to my left. Jane Freeman, standing in for Adam Costa, as the town council. Nelson Mui is our town administrator. Laurie Schifrin is Chair of the Board of Selectmen. Veronica Kell and Valerie Goodrich, members of the Board of Selectmen. And I can't see everybody in the Finance Committee, but I believe we have Don Hayes, David Walker, Mary Jane Churchville, I'm not sure if I'm in the right order here, Jerry Bezikas, and Carol Hostas.
Sam Grant.
Oh, and Sam Grant. All right, Sam, thank you. First, can I get a round of applause for our newly elected town clerk and newly elected selectmen? All right, I think, I believe Melissa Dunnett's here. Where are you, Melissa? Someplace? Okay. All right, I don't know, is town accountant Katie Kazanjian? Kazanjian, she's here too. All right. All right, again, customarily, we follow town meeting time for our rules of procedure. Please be recognized before you speak and clearly identify yourself by name and address to the floor. We're going to use the two microphones up here in the front, so if you do want to speak on some matter, I'd ask you to come forward, and I'm going to go back and forth between the two microphones, recognizing people to speak. I'm going to ask that you direct all your comments to the chair, and I'm asking that everyone conduct themselves in a respectful and courteous manner. We're trying to get through this business. We got a lot of work to do. All motions must be in writing and brought to the clerk, and any motions to amend need to be in writing and brought to the clerk. The debate is limited to the motion before the meeting, so try to stay on target. I'm just going to ask people that avoid personal attacks of any sort, because we want to try to keep this pleasant, and we don't want to scare people away from public service. Let's see. The votes are taken by ayes and noes. I determine the outcome by voice vote. If I'm in doubt, I may ask to do another vote by voice. If I'm still in doubt, I may call for a standing count. If I declare the vote, and if 7 people rise to challenge that declaration, if by 7 people, then we will do a standing count. Harrison, we have the counter sworn in?
Yes, we do.
Okay. If you're confused about the situation on the floor, or you have a procedural question, you may raise a point of order by standing in place and asking to be heard as a point of order. I will recognize you. You can interrupt the speaker and ask you to state what your point of order is, and then I will rule on that. If you have something interfering with your participation in the meeting, you can't hear, or I know some people complained at the last meeting at Town Hall that people were talking while the meeting was going on and they couldn't hear the meeting. So I ask everybody to be quiet unless you're actually addressing the meeting, or at least keep it down to a whisper like you're in the library. And then if you want to state your point of privilege, I can figure out what we need to do to fix the problem. As you all know, I think a motion to move the question cuts off debate and is not debatable. However, our practice has been one cannot rise to debate a motion and then move the question, thereby getting in the last word. So to move the question, you must first be recognized to speak, and you may not interrupt the speaker. Also, if a motion to move the question, if it appears that there's been insufficient discussion and there are a lot of people that still raising their hands, I will deem that motion to move the question out of order, unless the questions and answers become so redundant that it seems that the meeting needs to move on and there is a motion to move the question. Visitors may speak if there's no objection, and even if there is an objection, I may still allow them to speak if they have specific information that's important to the meeting. I think we only have one visitor, and he's a department head, so department heads have a right to speak anyway. So we've had the return of the warrant. Now, this is the annual town meeting, so I'm going to appoint a deputy moderator for the year. I'd like your endorsement of Jean Rahala as the deputy moderator. All those in favor of Jean, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. It's unanimous. All right. I sort of skipped over a few things because we're right into the special town meeting, but I don't think that matters. So we can start with Article 1, to hear the reports of boards, committees, or commissions, or take any other action in relation thereto. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Schifrin.
I move that the town vote to hear reports of the boards, committees, or commissions.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any debate, discussion? Yep, Ms. Lord.
All right, I have a concern, and I'm going to, I'll address this to the chair. I watched the last Zoom meeting of the Select Board, and what is the purpose of the executive session? Could you tell me?
I think that's, quite frankly, out of order.
Well, it has to do with
It's a question of whether or not the meeting wants to hear, excuse me, the question is whether or not we want to hear reports from the boards and commissions of the town. Does the meeting want to hear those reports?
All right, but it has to do with the report from the Board of Selectmen.
You want to hear a report from the Board of Selectmen?
I do, but this has to do with the report of the Board of Selectmen.
Well, I think if the meeting votes to hear the reports if they have a report to give, we can hear it.
Okay, and then I can speak afterwards?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. All right. All those in favor of hearing reports of the boards and commissions or committees, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Are there any reports from any boards, commissions, or committees? Ms. Kell, yes.
This is a report of the Select Board on the fiscal year 2026 budget process. The budget process began in December with the TA developing the budgetary guidelines that were distributed to the departments. On January 6th, budget requests meeting these guidelines were returned to the town administrator to be input into the omnibus budget, which is a collection of the budgets of all the departments. The town's joint budget summit for all departments, boards, and committees was scheduled for Saturday, March 1st. On January 30th, a joint meeting between the Select Board and the FinCom set joint meeting dates for the month of February for the presentation and discussion of each town department's budget. Department heads were also present at these meetings. These joint meetings were held on February 11th, 13th, 18th, 20th, 25th, and 27th. Joint school department meetings were held on January 31st at Neshoba Valley and February 6th for North Middlesex. These school budgets were incorporated into the omnibus budget. At the March 1st Budget Summit, the omnibus budget that was developed was short $1.3 million, even with the 2.5% increase in property taxes that is allowed by law. The North Middlesex Regional School Committee had requested all 3 towns have a special town meeting on March 10th to ask the townspeople for an override of the 2.5% property tax limit in order to fund the North Middlesex School's proposed budget, a part of the omnibus budget. So what happened on March 10th? The Townsend Select Board asked for a $611,000 override question for the boards. For the schools. We also noted that there would need to be an override of over $700,000 to fund the town part of the omnibus budget. The $611,000 needed for the schools was voted to be funded with $200 of free cash and $411,000 from the general fund, which meant the town's omnibus budget was left with a $1.1 million shortfall. Cuts needed to be made. The Select Board looked first at what the consequence would be of closing buildings 1 day a week. This was not an adequate solution. Nelson, our town administrator, asked each department to cut expenses by 20%, and if able, more. The result was the omnibus budget, which included residential trash pickup, but still needed an override. Without the override, residential trash pickup could not be funded by tax revenue. Staff reductions would be necessary as expenses were already at a minimum, and some services would be reduced, such as band concerts. In anticipation of the override failing, Nelson spoke with department heads where possible to see what additional cuts could be made, and there are very few, and what staffing recommendations would keep the departments functioning. These staffing recommendations are, for the most part, required to be collectively bargained via the unions. The affordable housing ARPA funding of $101,000 that had not yet been dedicated was put forward to be used for salaries. The omnibus budget presented at the annual town meeting this evening reflects many hours spent by the town administrator to develop with the departments a budget that keeps town hall, cemetery, parks, and recreational services, though with some reduced staffing levels. The ARPA money now available is used to offset staff hours in the expectation that free cash and other funding sources will replenish these hours in fiscal year 2027. The senior center, library, and public safety services that Townsend residents enjoy are preserved. Residential trash pickup was just over half of the override ask, and as a consequence is not included in the Select Board's budget. The Select Board does support residential trash pickup, provided that it is kept outside of the tax levy and stabilization funds, and is funded only with other than tax dollars. The Select Board has listened to the overwhelming voice of the people who voted that there be no override. The tax increase in this budget is 0.5% as opposed to the 2.5% increase allowed by law. We hope you will support this well-considered omnibus budget that is being put forward for fiscal year 2026 by the Town Administrator and Select Board this evening. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other reports from any boards or commissions, committees? All right, hearing none, I think we can go on to Article... Oh, yeah, Ms. Churchville? No?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much, Selectman Kell. I would just like to tell you all what the FinCom, the Finance Committee, has been doing during this time, and particularly after the override was not accepted. So the Finance Committee has developed a fiscal year 26 budget grounded in the principle of financial clarity and preservation of essential services and staff. Recognizing the importance of transparency and engagement for the voters, FinCom decided to construct an alternate budget that strives to maintain departmental staffing levels and is organized in a department-based format. This format differs from the Board of Selectmen's presentation, which combined line items in a manner that obscured the impact of proposed reductions, particularly making it difficult to identify specific positions that were cut or restructured. The Finance Committee provides the draft working budget to the Town Administrator, who sent it to the department heads. The department heads are allowed discretion over internal line item adjustments so long as the overall department bottom line is maintained. Feedback was overwhelmingly positive to our budget, and departmental heads made themselves available for last-minute questions and input. FinCom has chosen a department-based format to restore clarity. Among the several versions of the Board of Selectmen's budget, during the process, grouped together unrelated departments and made it difficult for FinCom members and residents to understand the full financial picture. Albeit a lot of us on FinCom are new and we are learning. And we also come from the place that you're at right now, not knowing all the backstory, all the information and the input. So we were you this year. Further, it should be noted that the FinCom budget is relying on line reallocation of ARPA funds. Those are the funds that were given to the town by the federal government for COVID relief that had specific requirements on how they were allocated. It is well documented that ARPA should not be used for new positions, that levy funds were not to be used, I'm reading this, to support ARPA funds, and if it did not work in the budget, the positions would end. There was also funding from ARPA that housing did not use, which will be reallocated, that Selectman Kell discussed in her report. FinCom is aware that the fire department is assisting Pepperell as we would hope another town would assist Townsend. If needed, we have given that this effort goes beyond mutual aid, and we hope funds are recouped for this effort. The Finance Committee recommends the use of stabilization funds, which is a bit opposite what Selectman Kell just said, to to support a pilot program for the town-wide trash services. As you all know, the trash has been a big issue, and we have worked very closely with the Board of Health. They have been overwhelmingly cooperative. They have offered services to us so we could understand better, and we feel that we've come to a really good end with the Board of Health, which will be presented tonight. Okay, now just a bit about the FinCom. Massachusetts general law creates FinCom for any town that has a budget over $10 million. The FinCom is supposed to work in conjunction with the Board of Selectmen. The board presents their budget, the FinCom reviews the budget, and makes recommendations to you, the taxpayers. And that's where we are tonight. Thank you.
Okay, report from the Finance Committee has been made. Are there any other reports? Hearing none, I think we can... Is it about the budget? Okay, I think what we're trying to do now is just hear these reports. They're not really debatable. I think let's reserve the discussion about the budget until we get to the budget. I think these reports are more explanatory to give people information about what the boards and committees have done. So, there's another report?
Yeah, Christian.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Christian Roman, Chairman of the Board of Health. We wanted to present our alternative as board, as we presented to the Board of Selectmen before this meeting. We have a presentation. If someone can connect it so that the people can see it, please.
Nelson has it.
How long is this going to be?
It's going to be 5-10 minutes. It's not going to be too long.
Okay.
So we, as a board, we presented a recommended alternative. We had two options, whether the override would pass or not pass. And since the override did not pass, the Board of Health had presented a alternative of curbside trash and recycling, which would include a flat fee. If you can pass the next slide. So the challenge that we have with the town budget, the goal will be consistent funding. The challenge, residents' budgets, the goal is affordable. Public health, prevent infestation and illness. Clean community, prevent illegal dumping. Stability, create a long-term plan. Environmental, prevent water and air pollution. And accessibility, to make it easy. Next slide, please. So the strategy is to remove the curbside trash and recycling from the tax levy to the Board of Health, utilizing the solid waste fund, revolving fund, as per bylaws. Continue with the pay-as-you-throw program, BAG program for fiscal year 2026, in order to maintain access to available grant funds and gather important data in order to best plan for the next steps. As we know, the Board of Health is still working on getting more information and more data in order to provide to the people affordable curbside pickup trash. At a small fee to fund and maintain the current level of services. In fiscal year 2026, the fee will be subsidized to allow more residents the opportunity for service during this pilot year. Next slide, please. So here we have the cost and what the Board of Health has proposed to the Board of Selectmen and to the people for their consideration. We have the contract-only collection, which will be $489,480. That is what the Board of Health has recommended. And the trash tip fee will be $110 ton estimate per 1,300 tons, with sum of $143,000. The recycling tip fee will be 130 ton estimate, 850 tons, and the cost will be $110,500, meaning the total hauler cost of $742,980. And probably the people are asking, well, the funding, where's it going to come from? Well, we have the pay-as-you-throw bag receipts, which are between $28,000 and $32,000 monthly, which sums $100,000. The user fee that the town, that the Board of Health has proposed and the Board of Selectmen had recommended before was a user fee, an annual fee of $125 per household. And this is not an obligated fee. This is a voluntary fee, whoever wants to continue with the program with the town of Townsend, which we estimate for the families that we have will be $225,000. And we will use from pilot funding fiscal year 26, the stabilization fund, $157,980, summing the total revenue of $742,980. And this is a conservative estimate. What will be the savings if we compare with private trash? Right now, 64-gallon trash recycle, with the least expensive of $45 a month, it would add to the people who are on the private $540 per year. If we decide with the pay-as-you-throw program, with paying for the purple bags, the unlimited recycling, and with a user fee of $125 per year, and with the pay-as-you-throw bags of $168 per year, the savings will be between $293 and $209 per year. So the projected savings for family will be $247, and the projected savings for a family of two, $331. And the Board of Health has presented these numbers, and based on the input from the people of Townsend, and in Zoom with the Finance Committee also. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Roman Ramirez, for the report from the Board of Health. Okay, so I think, are there any other reports? I think this is the first time we've heard this many reports on this article. We can go forward to Article 2, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board to appoint all town officers unless other provisions are made by Massachusetts general law, by town charter, or by vote of the town. Oh, I'm sorry, we are. I was reading on the wrong warrant. Where'd that one go? Here we are. Okay, Article 2. Thank you, Ms. Kell. To see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash or other available funds in the Treasury the sum of $291,600 or any other sum for the purpose of offsetting fiscal year 25 snow and ice deficits under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 31D, or take any other action in relation thereto. Is there a motion? Yeah, Ms. Kell?
I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $291,600 for the purpose of offsetting fiscal year '25 snow and ice deficits under the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 31D.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there anything to be said? Fairly standard article. I'm going to have to ask people to come up to the microphones because we don't have wandering microphone folks this time.
My name is Chris Noseller. I'm from South Harbor Road. One question for the selectmen. How much money is left in the free cash?
Question comes on the motion. Someone from the, Nelson?
If we vote to transfer this $291,600 from free cash to pay for the snow and ice deficit, by my math, there'll be $58 left in free cash.
Thank you.
Okay. Question and answer comes on the motion. Down here? Yep.
Hi, Dawn Priest, 8 Pine Street. I just wanted some clarification. I believe the department head had about $20,000 remaining in unexpended funds that could go to that. Is that factored into this $291,000?
No, there's not enough free cash to cover the entire deficit. So the Finance Committee has agreed to use some of their reserve funds to cover the remainder of the deficit.
Does the $291,600 reflect the $20,000 that the highway department head said was available to be applied to it?
A question comes on the motion about $61,000 the highway department had?
About $20,000. I was just looking for clarification on it in unexpended funds.
I mean, the highway FY25 budget is not complete yet, so there probably is unexpended funds, but that's not, at this point, an appropriate place to take the money from to cover the remainder of the snow and ice deficit.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah, I
you know,
mean,
the Finance Committee, appropriated $16,000 from their reserve fund to cover part of the deficit.
Okay, questions come on the motion. I think we have, I believe, this obligation to pay for expenses that we've incurred due to snow and ice. So I appreciate, I guess, the effort that people are trying to find money, but as I understand it, that even if the highway department has some extra money, it's not in free cash yet.
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything else to be said? Not seeing any. I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 2, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to close out old warrant articles and reallocate to renovations of Memorial Hall, including the replacement of exterior trim, painting, and storm windows. The balances is indicated below for a total of $53,784.74, or any other sum, or take any other action in relation thereto. And I will just briefly refer to it's in the warrant before you. There is Article 14 from the special town meeting in December 20th, 2018, associated costs with a charter of $3,827.40. There was funds left over from a special town meeting, Article 4, allocation for town hall roof and rec stairs, $26,749.34, and I believe it's an article at the annual town meeting on May 3rd, 22, where funds have been appropriated for Memorial Hall and the Harbor Fire Station that are left over of $23,208, for a total of $53,784.74. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to close out old warrant articles and reallocate to renovations of Memorial Hall, including the replacement of exterior trim, painting, and storm windows, the following balances for a total of $53,784.74.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to allocate those funds that are left over to Memorial Hall renovations or repair. Is there anything to be said? Ms. Priest?
I'd like to amend the motion on the floor to see if the town will vote to close out old warrant articles and reallocate the payment of fiscal year 2026 police cruiser lease payments, the balances as indicated below, for a total of $53,784.74, with no change to the table.
Okay, is there a response to that?
I would just like to say that these three articles were considered by capital planning and voted at the end of February to be put towards needed work at Memorial Hall. The idea was to put them on the special town meeting warrant so that they could be combined with other funds that may be available in the facilities budget, so that the work could be done during fiscal year 25 in May and June, when the weather is good and might be conducive to doing those repairs. After the vote was taken, a vendor was approached for an estimate for the work. That estimate came in at approximately $68,000 or $69,000. So we're short, but only by about $16,000. I am certain that that vendor, if in fact there aren't funds available in the current fiscal year budget, could be asked what part of this work could be done. This was work that facilities felt was important and that the Capital Planning Committee supported. To put the, I could go on, but I think we'll stop there. As far as putting the money towards cruisers, that money is in the general fund of the police budget. And it is funds that if we don't, that if we use these, if we were to take these and decide not to fund the repairs in Memorial Hall, put it towards the cruisers, it would create a deficit of $53,000 in the police budget for the fiscal year 2027. The police budget is about $2 million, a little bit less. This 50,000 roughly comes out to about 2.5% of that budget, and that puts the police budget already in a deficit in fiscal year 27 by 2.5% before any new budgeting is done. So that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
May I give my reason for the amendment?
Briefly, because we've got some other folks that want to speak too.
Yeah, I think I'm supposed to make the amendment and have the first right to speak as to why, but I'm making the amendment because there was a grant available for these funds and the select board failed to submit it, and we can access that grant in fiscal 2026. Also, the windows listed up here in the quote was $68,900. Windows are not a part of that quote. And windows, according to the facilities department head, who I also spoke with, are the most critical part of this. Therefore, we could utilize the FinCom reserves to cover that expense and reduce the out-of-pocket cost to taxpayers by $53,000.
Okay, comments come on the Article 3. Sir?
Hello. I'd like to know if this money...
Sir, if you to state your name and address, please.
Yeah. Colby Streeter, Weld Hill Road. I'm curious if this money will be available and held in escrow so that grants can be applied for. There are matching funds available through, Massachusetts Preservation Projects Fund, but they have to have money allocated in order to apply for these grants. Will it be available, or does it have to be paid out directly to contractors?
Question comes on the motion. Anything in response?
I guess the only thing I can say is that grant required it's a reimbursement grant, so you had to have the funds available at the time of application. And it's a 50-50 grant, and the grant funder requires that 75% of the grant amount be available in cash at the time of the application, which is the reason that we did not apply. We had planned not to use these funds, but to use free cash. But we knew after town meeting on March 10th that we would not have the free cash available to use as the match. So consequently, we did not apply for the grant. It is available next year, and hopefully we will be in the position, if the work that was not funded through these funds, if there's additional work to be done. So that's the reason. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Craven?
Yes, Kim Craven, Lunenburg Road. I'll start with the grant. In order to actually have the funding to say that it would match the grant, the funds would have had to have been thought through and encumbered at special town meeting, because you just can't take the money and say that that's where it's going to go, because that is actually the responsibility of this body. So the special town meeting preceded the deadline for the grant. So when special town meeting occurred, there should have been an item on special town meeting to ask for the funding to apply for the grant. That was not done, so there was no way, unless there was other funding available that was not at the discretion of the taxpayers, that that money could have been written down, that it was obligated, because it's only this body that could obligate it, and you were not asked to obligate it at the special town meeting. So the funds that were at special town meeting could have been, if the select board decided to put it on the special town meeting warrant, to go for that. You can't do it after the fact. You have to do it before. They can't take town funding and put it towards something without your all permission. So that's on the grant. So we are hopefully going to get the certification for free cash from the buildings that just sold. $245 for one and $75 for the other, if I'm not correct in some change. So there would be some free cash to plan ahead for that, because it is an important grant to go for. It would be great for our town. To this motion in particular, the cruisers, this was capital funding. Cruisers are capital. I don't think anyone in this body would penalize the chief or the police department knowing that this came out of another fund. I think we all have pretty good memories here, that would be something that we would understand. Just like when ARPA funds were applied, it changed some of the line items. We remember those things. The other thing, that taking the money here, it relieves the burden of the overall budget, allowing other funds to be applied for other departments so that the cuts that they would feel are not so great. And also, talking to the facilities manager, there is money left in his budget that could pay for paint and supplies in this year. And as pointed out, the storm windows are not part of the $68,000. So the $68,000 is more than the 53 and does not include the storm windows. So this motion is asking for something that there's not even a bid for. So in my estimation, it's better to take that $53,000, apply it to the cruisers, lifting up that money to be used for other departments. The facilities manager can use what he has left in his budget by June 30th and proceed in that manner.
Any comments come on the motion on Article 3? Ms. King?
Hi, Cindy King, West Elm Street. I'm not sure if I have a point of order or not. I'd like to, I'm confused right now as to whether we're still talking, or we are speaking about the main motion of Article 3, or if we're debating the motion that was made to amend the Article 3. I don't remember hearing.
Was a written motion submitted?
Did you ask for one?
Well, at the beginning of the meeting, I said that any motions or amendments to the motions have to be in writing.
Okay, I think, here it comes. Thank you.
We'll get one. Is there a second? Okay, I was going to see that. Make sure I read it. Okay. Okay, there's been a motion to amend Article 3. To see if the town will vote to close out old warrant articles and reallocate to payment of fiscal year 26 police cruiser lease payments, the balances as is indicated below for a total of $53,784.74. Say again? I can't hear you, I'm sorry. Something with the slide? All right, so the article, this actual, it's worded a little bit differently than typically you would have it. I move to amend the motion on Article 3 as follows. So I'm going to take that as the intent of this motion. All right, so the motion to amend is before you. Already had some discussion, I guess, about it. Is there anything further to be said? The motion to amend would take the money in the original motion from use for Memorial Hall and use it for police cruiser leases. Ms. Lizio, if you take the mic, please, so people can hear. Oh, okay, hold on, Ms. Lizio. I think we're having some technical difficulties here. We are having a problem with the power on the, someone here that can help with the power connection here, because it seems to have, I don't know if it blew a fuse or what, but anybody good with electrical? I don't know, yeah.
Mr. Moderator?
Yep, Ms. Lizio.
Maybe we could continue the discussion? My question is, we're voting on whether or not we want to amend the article, not to vote on that amended article. Is that correct?
Right, we will be voting to amend the motion on Article 3 to instead use the money for police cruisers.
So it's a,
So if the motion is amended, it's completely, obviously, it's a completely different allocation. If the motion is voted to amend, that becomes the main motion, and then we would vote on the main motion.
And that's what I wanted you to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, technical difficulties have been fixed. Yep, sir?
Hi, Vin DeVulis, Birch Lane. I'd like to get, Mr. Moderator, would you ask someone from the FinCom to please comment on what they feel about the machinations of these funds? And frankly, ask them to comment on every article that concerns money. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. DeVolis. I think good point, well taken. Does the FinCom, folks, if we're going to take 20 seconds every time for clapping, we're going to be here till over midnight. I mean, we're not going to stay there that long. FinCom, do you have any recommendations?
Our recommendation, as we voted in our meeting, was to recommend this article as it stands with the money to repair Memorial Hall. We thought it was a very good case to repair the facility before it requires a lot more work.
Okay, comments come on the question, on the motion. We have another person?
Brad Hahn, Brown Road. Is Memorial Hall considered a historical building? So then we just voted on a CPA tax that goes into effect in July, does it not?
It'll be 2 years till we realize that. Yes, we did just vote on that. However, in annual town meeting tonight, there's a bylaw to set up a committee. The funds won't be realized until a year from now. The end of fiscal year 26, early fiscal year 27 will be the earliest those funds are available to the town. And the bylaw committee needs to be in place, the committee that considers projects that are asked for. So if you're thinking that CPA money is going to fix a repair that's needed now, that's probably not the best way to think about those CPA funds, but they will be available in the future.
So what repairs are absolutely necessary for right now?
It's a shame that the facilities department head isn't here, but from what he put on the capital plan, it was, the first was paint and trim, then it was storm windows. After that, I believe there was some roofing, and those of you on capital plan can help me out on that. I don't have the 5-year capital plan in front of me. But it was definitely the things that are listed here.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the reason I bring that up is because really as we start to talk about a overall budget increase and override, the town has to remember we're actually looking at really a 1.5 versus a 0.5 when we start to realize the 1% CPA tax that's actually coming in as well. So I think for the community, we do have to remember that no matter what the number is that comes up. Thank you.
I just want to be clear about one thing. The 0.5% is regular property tax. Property tax can go up 2.5%. With the budget we've presented, it does not go up 2.5% for fiscal year 26. It goes up 0.5% over the FY25 amount, which means that the 1%, which is on less than your assessed value actually, so it's not exactly a total 1%. But in any event, that's details, is less than the regular 2.5% increase that we've all been realizing over the past X number of years. So just know that. There's no override included in this budget. The override failed.
Okay, so we are not going back for another override vote today, is that correct?
Not from the select board's budget, you're not, no. I don't know otherwise.
Excellent, thank you.
Ms. Priest?
How much is in the FinCom reserves right now?
In the FinCom reserve fund this year, right now, there is $34,954, still meant to be for emergencies and unanticipated changes in a budget. It is not for normal items, so that a repair and maintenance item would not really be considered unless it was brought on an article and brought before the whole town to vote. That's the only exception to using reserve funds for a non-emergency item.
So with the department head saying that the windows are actually the most critical item and not having it in that quote, if the department head is communicating that as an emergency situation, would it not be considered by FinCom?
At this point, it would not be considered an emergency because there are still funds in his existing account, so it's not an emergency until that fund would go negative based on an expenditure.
So once he's expended all of his available funding, then it would be considered by FinCom?
It would be a consideration, but not a guarantee that it would be approved.
So again, I would say if they are that dire that we cannot wait to get 50% of the funds through a grant, then they're probably not that dire to do right now. And if they are, we could utilize that $34,000 in addition to whatever's in the facilities account.
Ms. Craven?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kim Craven, Lunenburg Road. So 2 things to add to this. This vote was taken on February the 24th, prior to even setting an override amount. You might recall there was a straw poll, 94% of registered voters that put their name down said that they would prefer to actually have town meeting and discuss some of these things before even going to an override. So that's one thing. The second thing is we're saying that he has money left in his budget and we can't do something that, not to be contradictory, Mr. FinCom Chair, but Mr. Hayes, I'm pretty sure that you said at a meeting that the storm windows could actually be an emergent situation because they were loose and could get blown out along with the emergency exit signs. So there is, I think, a little confusion on what is an emergency and what is not. But I would say that a cruiser is more of a need under capital than it would be for
Point of order,
paint.
Ms. Craven?
Yes.
Mr. Rahalo, what's your point of order? Yep.
What? Oh. Thank you. That's the point of that. Oh, wait.
Mr.
This
Rahalo.
topic has gone past the point of the motion. We are talking about emergencies under the Finance Committee's rules. That's not embraced within the motion or the amendment.
I think your point of order is well taken, that we're getting a little bit beyond ourselves trying to cover all sorts of possible contingencies when the question is whether or not to amend this article or not. Thank you, Mr. Rahala. Ms. King?
Yes. I think one thing that's being missed in this conversation about, at least about the article or the amendment, is that this article is not asking, the main article is not asking to fully fund the replacement of exterior trim, painting, and storm windows. This is a closeout motion article to close out old articles from previous town meetings where we allocated money, and when we do that at any town meeting, the money can't, these are unexpended amounts that were in different articles years over the last God knows how many years, and they were not completely spent, and the money's being returned to, we're voting to return the money to some available purpose. And this article is put on here so that the 53,784 that's captured back from these old articles is going to be available for our facilities to do for the replacement of exterior trim, painting, and storm windows. I do not read anything in this article that is saying that it is to fully fund. It is part of, it's going towards that cost, and somewhere in the budget possibly, or even if it does come from a grant somewhere, or future free cash, that this is intended just to supplement, and this is where the selectmen who made this article to exist to fund this important function. And just to, as a side note, I know over the years I've listened to the facilities manager beg for money, and even a few years ago, he was concerned that the windows were going to fall out, that the structure was so failing, and I don't believe that's been repaired. So I think this is bordering on emergency. But this article is to clean out old articles and put it towards the fixing
Ms. King,
of town hall.
with all due respect, I think you've said that three or four
That's
times
all.
now.
Okay, sorry.
So,
I got to get my point across.
yeah, I think you did. Mr. Templeton.
Yeah, Rob Templeton, Hillside Drive. Could we move the question, please?
All right, motion's made to move the question. This will cut off debate. All those in favor of moving the question, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The motion before you is whether or not to amend Article 3. I think you all know what the amendment is to apply the funds listed in Article 3 towards police cruiser lease as opposed to Memorial Hall repairs. So all those in favor of moving the question, please say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, we did that. Now we're voting on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. No. The noes have it. The main motion is before you. I think we pretty much agitated this horse to death. All those in favor of the motion on Article 3, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. No. All right, the ayes have it. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to close out old warrant articles and reallocate to the capital stabilization account the balances as indicated below for a total of $26,329.20, or any other sum, or take any other action in relation thereto. And they are... What's your point of order? Oh, this is something that, yeah, I'm not able to see, so good point. So we get a new article line there now? Okay. Well, as printed in the warrant, is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Ms.
I
Schifrin.
move that the town vote to close out old warrant articles and reallocate to the capital stabilization account the following balances for a total of $26,329.20. Do you want me to read the lines of the individual amounts? You did that before, but you didn't do this.
I think properly you should.
Okay. From the CP American Legion, cash, $22,900. From CPW West Townsend Fire Station, cash, $3,087.20. And cash from the tanker, $342, and the total being $26,329.20.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded on Article 4. Is there anything to be said? Appears we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 4, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, unanimous. I think that closes out the special town meeting. Is there a motion to dissolve the special town meeting? Second, motion made and seconded to dissolve the special town meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The special town meeting is dissolved. And that will automatically bring us back to the annual town meeting. As we only recessed it till the conclusion of the special. So, we already have read this warrant, the return of the warrant, and so Article 1, the motion is to move, I'm now looking at the motions here. Okay. Article 1, to see if the town will vote to hear the reports of boards, committees, or commissions, or take any other action in relation thereto. Is there a motion? Ms. Cal.
I move that the town vote to hear reports of boards, committees, or commissions.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made to hear the reports of boards, committees, or commissions, if there are any. All in favor? Any discussion about this? I don't think there needs to be, but if you want to say a question, but basically to see if there's any other reports. All those in favor of the motion to hear reports, if there are any, please say aye. Those opposed say no. Okay, the ayes have it. Are there any other reports to be made? Apparently, we already heard our reports, so that's good. Moving right along, Article 2, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board to appoint all town officers unless other provisions are made by Mass General laws, by town charter, or by vote of the town, or take any other action in relation thereto. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
I move
Ms.
that the
Goodrich.
town vote to authorize the Select Board to appoint all town officers unless other provisions are made by Massachusetts general law, by town charter, or by vote of the town.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. This is a fairly standard article. Is there anything to be said? Not, Ms. Lord?
Is this similar to the last town meeting where there was or was it on the ballot? I can't remember. It might have been the ballot that wanted to have the town clerk's position appointed. Is this similar to that?
No. No, this is just authorizing the selectmen to appoint people to positions if there's a vacancy or the town bylaw provides their authority to appoint people as it does.
Okay. So it's not across the whole board, in other words, across the...
It doesn't mean they have the authority to appoint people in opposition to people who are elected. People who are elected are still elected.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? I think we're ready to vote. All in favor of motion on Article 2, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Article 3. To see if the town will vote to amend zoning bylaws, being Chapter 145 of the Town Code, Article 9, entitled Special Provisions, Section 54.1, entitled Age Restricted Development, as is printed in the warrant. I'm not going to read it with your permission, and I'd ask for, is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Schifrin.
I move that the town vote to amend its zoning bylaw, being Chapter 145 of the Town Code, Article 6, entitled Special Provisions, Section 54.1, entitled Age Restricted Development, as printed in the warrant.
The motion's been made and seconded. Is there a report from the planning board? Oh, okay. Was that misspeak?
I apologize.
All right. Brush up on your Roman numerals.
I accept the correction.
All right. Friendly amendment. Is there a report from the planning board?
Yes, I can read the report.
Okay. Ms. Schifrin?
In accordance with General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Planning Board held a public hearing on April 14th, 2025, to review a proposal submitted by the Planning Board to amend zoning bylaws, Article 9, 145, 54.1, Age Restricted Development. The Planning Board voted unanimously to recommend adoption of the proposed amendments for the following reasons. 1, the proposed amendment aims to reduce the minimum lot size from 2 acres to 1 acre, promoting the development of properties within walking distance of town amenities and local attractions. Despite this reduction, developers will still be required to adhere to the same regulations and meet the same criteria as they would for any other permit issued by the town. 2, the proposed amendment to add Section C8 will allow the Planning Board to use reasonable discretion in its review to work with the developer and grant reduction alteration, or waiver of basic development design requirements if said action would advance the purpose of this section and further public interest. 3, eliminating section C.5 of the bylaw, which pertains to waiving minimum setback requirements between buildings or internal lots, will streamline the wording, as this issue will be generally covered by provisions of section C.8. 4, making age restriction obligatory, I can't even say it, an obligation by adding section F. This proposal aims to ensure that all homes in age-restricted developments are occupied by at least one person who is 55 years or older. This requirement will be legally enforced and recorded in the property's title. Therefore, any occupancy certificates are issued before any occupancy certificates are issued. The restriction will last indefinitely or as long as the law allows. And that's our report.
Okay, the report's been received and is in writing. Ms. Schifrin?
Yes, ma'am.
Submit that with the clerk. All right, the matter is before you. Is there anything to be said? Ms. Lord?
I have a concern regarding the first part of it, where it says going down from 2 to 1. I talked to a former Board of Health, and the former Board of Health member did not think it was a good idea with regards to septic systems. And I would love to hear from a current Board of Health member to weigh in on this as well.
Question comes on the motion relative to the Board of Health requirements. Dr. Roman, Ms. Schifrin, can you address that?
Yes, I'm happy to. Ms. Lord, thank you for coming. You were actually at our public hearing. And as I explained, part of this, and as the report explains, that part of this is so that we can encourage more density in a walkable area. It has to be town water, and it has to be able to have approved septic system permits by the Board of Health. And I also explained it doesn't matter if you have 2 acres or 5 acres or 10 acres. There may still only be one portion, and I cited a recent issue here in town, where it's 5.5 acres and a failed system, and the only place on that whole entire property where you could build another septic system, install one, was the same spot that it was in. Less than a half acre of that lot was able to be used. So if an acre, you can have a septic system that works really well with town water, and we have plenty of them on Main Street. They're only quarter-acre lots. So this is the intent of this bylaw change, is for age-restricted housing in a walkable area.
I understand perfectly what the intent is. I would love for the former Board of Health member to get up and speak, because he was the one that alerted me to the possible problems of this. We're talking about new developments. We're not talking about existing buildings. I'm talking about new developments.
Correct, and as I explained, age-restricted has to have town water, and it has to get a permit for the septic system from the Board of Health. So there are checks and balances in place already in town for that.
All right, well, that's not really answering my concern, because, were you ever on the Board of Health, perhaps? Were you ever on the Board of Health?
I don't think we really need to go into who was on the Board of Health. Your question is there anybody from the Board of Health that can speak to this?
Yes, I would like to hear
And
from
I don't
the Board
know
of Health.
if there is. Dr. Roman Ramirez, can you?
Dr. Christian Roman Ramirez, Chairman of the Board of Health. So at this time, we as the Chairman of the Board, I don't have a specific response for that, and especially that I don't know which member who had given you this response to you?
My husband, he was a former Board of Health member.
Okay.
Come on. Come on. Yes, I am.
John Lord. When I was on the Board of Health, the reason why we had bigger lots was it was all about the septic systems. You know, if you jam, one of the reasons why Timberley Park really wasn't a great idea is because they had such a small septic systems. And then when those systems broke down, it was just a nightmare to try to get those systems approved and up to Title V. So I think if you're going to start minimizing the size of the lots, you're going to make sure that you're going to have a, area for an expansion. That's why they had these bigger lots. That's why I understood that's why we had the bigger lots, is to have an expansion area so we wouldn't be jamming lot on top of lot on top of lot. That's my only thought on that.
Okay, comments come on the motion to amend the town bylaw, zoning bylaw. Anything else to be said? Mrs. Barrett?
Yes, Mary Barrett, 38 Highland Street. I have a similar concern where you have 8 units of townhouse dwellings on an acre. So I'm assuming that could be 16 people if it's 2 adults over 55. That's 16 people. If the system breaks down, where's that going? Where's that septic going? It's a problem with one house. Now you have that many people going into one septic system. So that's one of my concerns.
Okay, I understand that, and I think that that's why we have good people not only in our Board of Health, but in Neshoba Boards of Health. We have Rick Metcalf is great, and he's good at what he does, and they do not issue permits that they do not feel will work. Now, granted, and I'm not going to talk about mine, but if you take care of your system, it's going to last, okay? And there are, some will last 20 years, some will last 40 years, some will last 7. I've seen that happen on Proctor Road. So, and that lot was over 2 acres. So really, you have to have the right soils and the right location on the lot, and you'll get a good system.
May I ask one more question? So there's occupancy permits that are being issued, and there's 2 bedrooms that are being allowed, up to 2 bedrooms in these units?
Yes.
So is it limited to 2 people? Is it 3 people? Is it somebody's 55, they have a husband, they have a child living with them? I mean, how many would be total in each unit?
Well, I think it would be per the square foot and what the Board of Health would allow. This restriction is for one person must be 55 and over, and there are only 2 bedrooms, and I believe that they're 1.5 bath, like minimum. But they're age restricted, but they're also, most of the plans that we're seeing are like aging in place. And I can tell you that the 3 that have been sold and occupied on Fitchburg Road, you have 2 singles and 1 couple that live there, no one else.
Okay. Comments come on the motion. Mr. Therian?
Yes, I'm Robert Therian from Fitchburg Road. I'm also on the planning board. I just want to make a couple of comments here. The planning board worked pretty diligently on several aspects of this article. And so the article has a lot of improvements on what the current bylaw says. In terms of clarification, it's taken an attempt to put more muscle into the occupant requirements on age. The problems that I feel it doesn't achieve is, one, by increasing the density, you actually lower the environmental area for the people that would be living there. So in recent applications, I've seen the developers that do this, they're all focused on the optimum number of units they can get, but very little emphasis on the services that those facilities need. And then The other part of this that I have trouble with, and there really isn't a confirmed way, even though we can record these on the deeds and everything, it still becomes an enforcement issue, and how does that get addressed? For the people at large here, there are examples of restricted housing already in town that you can compare to, and then comparing them to what's now available and to what this proposed amendment is to increase the density will give you a better feel for what this article is all about. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Comments come on the motion. Ms. Priest?
I think from a financial perspective, I really I'm encouraged by age-restricted housing. I think that if we have the ability to have more area that we can put that's a really positive thing. It can increase our tax base while not increasing our expenses in the schools. I think that's a really important thing. So I would just encourage an open mind. As far as enforcement, I'm not really sure. I know my parents lived in one for a while, and there was like an association that took care of all of that sort of thing. But I would say from a financial perspective, with all the checks and balances that Ms. Schifrin mentioned in place for this, I think it makes a lot of sense financially for our town as well.
All right, Ms. Greeno.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kim Greeno, Wallace Hill Road, former Conservation Commissioner. So I'm very familiar with how problematic small lots can be. It depends where you are in town, for sure. So all fair points. My question about 55-plus housing and this proposed bylaw or change to the bylaw, does it count towards any affordable housing minimums that have rammed down our throats? And if not, are we looking at potentially more bylaws for more small, potentially problematic lots being rammed down our throats so that we meet our affordable housing minimums?
I guess the question comes on the motion. Ms. Schifrin?
This is not, doesn't have anything to do with affordable housing, this particular bylaw. It's the age-restricted only.
Bad, Mr. Moderator. That's unfortunate because I can sort of envision this town could be looking at a future of many, many, many problematic lots. And I said when I was on the Conservation Commission, some of these lots should not be built. I mean, Don's point is fair. Everybody's making fair points, but it's really something to be considered.
Again, the permits have to be issued and there has to be town water. You know, so mostly what you're seeing with the age restricted is not the other two that we did, but the most recent one was near downtown. So near the Central Plaza, the, eating areas, the bank and post office, that sort of thing.
That's great. I guess maybe what I'm asking for is our planning and zoning planning.
Yes,
We need
planning has been planning for a while for affordable. We can't seem to get it all together. But we have vacancies on the planning board. There's 3.
There you go, Kim.
So come
I
on,
hear there's
everybody.
vacancies on conservation too, but no?
Pardon me? Yes, there's vacancies everywhere.
Yeah.
I wonder
Everywhere.
why.
Housing.
All right.
Affordable
That's a
housing.
plea for all of you to, if you're not on a board or commission, please consider joining up. Mr. Mueller.
Mike Mueller, 76 Tyler Road, and 6 years on the planning board years ago was plenty to fill me up. I have a question on this age restriction. I'm sure this is addressed and buried in there, but I just want to be reassured. Let's suppose I'm 78 and I've got a 25-year-old wife, and I move in there because one of us is over 55. I'm sure my wife is going to watch this.
You're in for it now, Mike.
Just kidding, dear. And I die at age 80. What happens to my 26-year-old wife? Is that covered in this?
The question comes on the motion.
Or does she get to live there for 40 more years? Or 30 more years?
Either that or, she gets another 78-year-old.
Well, I was going to suggest that, but I didn't want to dig a deeper hole.
She could just get a 55-year-old, Laurie.
That's why I said 30 years.
I don't know if the town has an answer for that.
The
If this
bylaw
is
is clear. The bylaw is clear.
that the person would be able to remain there?
No,
They would not.
they would not.
So if this is are these units something that people would own?
But if she's 26, she'll get a 55-year-old.
I'm sorry, she'll get what?
If she's 26, she'll get a 55-year-old.
No, but seriously, what happens?
Or her
Is it
mother will
covered?
move in. Good idea.
She has
Her
to
mother
move.
will move in.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure nothing will happen to her. That's my question. Yeah.
Okay,
In
folks,
writing.
hang on. I know Mr. Mueller is looking for an answer. I'm not sure if, I don't know, Town Council, do you have any opinion there?
Okay. The statute, the bylaw references several statutes, state law as well as federal. So the enforcement would be based on the provisions of the law that are applicable. The law requires 80% occupancy over 55. So if there were a household that had the older resident passed away and the 25-year-old wife was still living there, she probably could stay there for a period of time because the 80% might not be exceeded at that moment, depending on the occupancy at the time. But it would be based on occupancy. So if she owned it, she could rent it to someone who qualified for the over 55 requirement.
Okay,
Does
so
that help answer the question?
it comes as an averaging of the population in the development, basically?
So it would have to be looked at
the time.
as to what the composition of the
Okay.
residency was.
And, as long as they have 80%, the person would be okay, apparently. Ms. King?
Yes, I just want to speak in favor of this article. I also spoke at the public hearing in support of it. I know that a lot of town residents are concerned about the 1-acre zoning. And looking at this, this article is only speaking of age-restricted housing. This is when they're building age-restricted housing. This is the only housing that's being discussed that involves 1-acre zoning. And even speaking of that, to be fearful of it expanding anywhere, I mean, I live in West Townsend, I live in the historic district, that many of our homes, all of our homes, I think, all along Main Street in each of the historic districts, all of us are living in nearly the all quarter-acre lots. Some a little larger, but we're all quarter-acre lots, and I don't know of any of my neighbors that have a problem with their septic tank because their yard is too small. And as the boards have spoken, that the size of the lot is not the big issue when we're talking about septic and conservation, because those boards have to approve the building area. The building department has to approve it, the Board of Health has to approve it. And I'll tell you, those of you that know me know that I watch almost every meeting that goes on in this town, because I'm retired and don't have a life. But the Board of Health, it's amazing what they're able to do with septic. That I've seen many people come with septic applications to repair or replace or on new buildings or whatever they're doing with septic. A lot of it's over my head. But there's so much new science and technology that the septics are amazing, and after speaking with the agent, Rick Metcalf, that comes from Neshoba, that does all our septic permitting, you know, he talked to me about bedrooms, that it's based on bedrooms. So if you're building a building that's got a certain number of bedrooms, or you can stop. You can be stopped by how big your house is going to be or how big your building's going to be based on how much room there is to put a septic tank in. So if there isn't enough space to build the building to put the septic tank a certain size, the Board of Health is going to tell you how many bedrooms are going to be in that building, because this is how big your septic tank can be, and you can't put any more bedrooms in that house. And so it makes it completely safe, and the Board of Health, they're able to identify, and the designers are able to design septic tanks that work. We haven't had to stop living in our buildings in West Towns or in the smaller
Ms. King,
lots.
point of order.
We are going to be here all night, but not because of this article.
Can we?
All right, I'll end it. I'll stop. But
I think,
I
Ms.
just
King,
want to briefly say I'm supporting this article, and I hope that the 1 acre zoning is not what's going to kill it.
That will
Thank
work.
you.
Okay.
Mr. Moderator, can we move the
Francois? I'm sorry. It's
Keenan Francois, 2 Proctor. Can we move the question?
Move the question?
Wait.
All right. Motion's been made to move the question. It cuts off debate. It's not debatable. All those in favor of moving the question on Article 3, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. The ayes have it. It's unanimous. It is before you. Motion to see whether the town will amend the zoning bylaw for age-restricted development. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. No. Passes by 2/3. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw, being Chapter 145 of the Town Code, Article 9, entitled Special Provisions, by deleting in its entirety Section 45, entitled Floodplain District, and substituting therefore a new Section 45 as follows, or take any other action in relation thereto. And it is as printed in the warrant. And do we have a new screen up on the board for that? Okay. All right, is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Schifrin.
I move that the town vote to amend its zoning bylaw, being Chapter 145 of the Town Code, Article 9, entitled Special Provision.
Town Code Article 9, I see in the warrant. What do you see?
You're on the wrong slide.
We're on Article 4,
Yeah,
right?
but we're talking about the zoning bylaw. I'm on our...
We're good. Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Schifrin.
Where was I? Okay. Well, I know it was after Article 9. All right. Entitled
She knows the
Special
Roman
Provisions.
numerals now.
By deleting in its entirety Section 45 entitled Floodplain District and substituting therefore a new Section 45 as printed in the warrant.
Motion made and seconded. I hear a second? Second. All right. Motion's made and seconded. Is there a planning board report?
There is.
Okay.
Report of the Planning Board to the 2025 Annual Town Meeting, proposed zoning amendment to see if the town will vote to amend its zoning bylaw by deleting from Article 9, entitled Special Provisions, the entirety of Section 45 entitled Floodplain District, and substituting a new Section 45, therefore, relative to the regulation of the floodplain overlay district to comply with the requirements of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, and the National Flood Insurance Program. The planning board voted unanimously, I should read the public hearing thing. In accordance with General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the planning board held a public hearing on April 14th, 2025 to review a proposal submitted by the planning board to amend its zoning bylaw by deleting from Article 9 entitled Special Provisions the entirety of Section 45 entitled Floodplain District and substituting a new Section 45 therefore, relative to the regulation of floodplain overlay district to comply with the regulations of Federal Emergency Management Agency FEMA and the National Flood Insurance Program. The planning board voted unanimously to recommend adoption of the proposed amendments for the following reasons. One, the proposed zoning amendment aims to update the rules for the areas prone to flooding in our town. By doing this, we will ensure our regulations meet latest standards set by FEMA and the National Flood Insurance Program. Two, the update will protect residents and their properties from flood risks and make sure they can get flood insurance coverage. Three, the Section 45 titled Floodplain Overlay District has been reviewed and approved by the relevant state agency. It meets the minimum standards set by FEMA for communities in the National Flood Insurance Program. These standards include rules on zoning, building codes, and enforcement to help reduce flood risks.
All right, thank you, Ms. Schifrin. That's the report, and the board voted unanimously in favor of the article?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, is there anything to be said on this article? It's basically something that has to be updated from time to time. Appears we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 4, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. The ayes have it, unanimous.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
can I just make an announcement about the floodplain maps?
About the floodplain map?
Yeah.
Isn't that the next article?
Yes, there, on May 14th at Fitchburg City Hall, the Nashua Watershed is holding a forum from 4 to 7 p.m. You can go anytime, and it's for all the towns in the district whose floodplains were updated. So if you have a concern and want to see something that might be a place to go, it says that you can speak directly with local, state, and FEMA experts. Whether you live or work in the area, this is your chance to gain vital information about flood risks and insurance options. So I know I passed this on to be put up on the website, and I think it's going to be up as soon as it's able to be. So there will be a news announcement on the Town of Townsend website. Thank you.
Okay, announcement
Mr.
about the floodplain areas and the floodplain map, which brings us to Article 5, to see if the town will vote to amend its zoning bylaw, being Chapter 145 of the Town Code, Article 3, entitled Establishment of Zoning Districts, Section 145-7, entitled Location of Districts, by deleting the sentence, "The floodplain district is shown on maps entitled Middlesex County Flood Insurance Rate Maps dated June 4th, 2010, and substituting, therefore, the sentence, "Floodplain district is shown on the Middlesex County Flood Insurance Rate Map, FIRM, dated July 8th, 2025, and further on the Townsend, Mass. Zoning map with the note, floodplain overlay district is in effect as of 7/8/25. Additionally, by adding the latter map depicted below to the zoning bylaw as numbered attachment, or taking any other action in relation thereto. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Schifrin.
I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw being Chapter 45 of the Town Code, Article 3, entitled Establishment of Zoning Districts, Section 145-7, entitled Location of Districts, by deleting the sentence, "The floodplain district is shown on maps entitled Middlesex County Flood Insurance Rate Maps dated June 4th, 2010, and substituting, therefore, the sentence, "The floodplain district is shown on the Middlesex County Flood Insurance Rate Map, FIRM, dated July 8th, 2025, and further on the Townsend zoning map with the note floodplain overlay district area effective as of 7/8/25. And additionally, by adding the latter map depicted in the warrant to the zoning bylaw as a numbered attachment.
Motion's been made and seconded on Article 5. Is there anything to be said?
Do you want the report?
Go ahead, Ms. Schifrin.
Okay. In accordance with General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Planning Board held a public hearing on April 14th, 2025 to review a proposal submitted by the Planning Board to add the zoning bylaw a map entitled Townsend Map Zoning Map containing the floodplain overlay district area effective as of July 8th, 2025. The Planning Board voted unanimously to recommend the adoption of the proposed zoning map entitled Townsend Mass Zoning Map for the following reasons. 1, enhance safety. The new zoning map will help ensure that properties in flood-prone areas are built and maintained to reduce the risk of flood damage, protecting residents and their homes. 2, federal compliance. Adopting the new map ensures that the town remains in compliance with federal regulations, avoiding potential penalties and maintaining eligibility for federal assistance programs. 3, community resilience. The updated map will help the town better prepare for and respond to flood events, minimizing disruptions and speeding up recovery efforts. 4, future planning. The new map provides a clear and updated framework for future development, ensuring that growth in the town is sustainable and safe. That is my report.
Okay, that's the Planning Board report, and there's a written report to be filed. Ms. Schifrin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I have that. And this is the map, and it will be on our website so that you can see it.
All right. Motion and report have been received on Article 5. Is there anything to be said? Appears we're okay to vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. It's unanimous. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to amend its general bylaws by adding a new Chapter 139 thereto entitled Community Preservation Committee as follows, or take any other action in relation thereto. And the article, I'm not going to read it, contains the configuration of the Community Preservation Committee. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend its general bylaws by adding a new Chapter 139 thereto entitled Community Preservation Committee, as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Rideout.
Thank you, Mr. Rideout. Mr. Rideout, Mr. Barrett. I'm Bill Rideout.
Captain to you.
I don't know who I am. Bill Rideout, 88 South Harbor Road. I promised Mr. Moderator that if I went over 4 minutes, he could wave his hat and say huzzah, and I would stop. But I'm just going to do a brief review of where we stand with the Community Preservation Act and this bylaw that we're proposing to create a Community Preservation Committee. Back in November 5th, we, as a town, voted to pass the Community Preservation Act. At the particular way we passed it was the 1% surcharge on your property tax, except for the first 100,000 of your home's value. There are exclusions for moderate or low income, and if you want to apply for those exclusions, the town assessor has told me the period of time is this coming January 1st through the end of February. The exclusions change year by year, but in general, if you're under age 60 and you make less than 80K, you're excluded. If you're over age 60 and you make less than 100K, you can be excluded. There's a detailed calculator at townsendcpa.org. The money that we get from this surcharge can only be used for open space and recreation, historic preservation, and affordable housing. The money has to go to projects. It cannot go to operating expenses. It has to be a one-time thing that will improve one of those categories. We are going to be collecting the money in the next fiscal year, but it cannot be spent until we set up a community preservation committee here in Townsend, which is what we're hoping to do with this bylaw. The money collected is completely separate from normal town money, and is spent in a whole different way. The way it is spent is that we form a community preservation committee. They get various proposals and they vote on which ones they have depending upon how much money they bring in. The projects have to be approved by town council as appropriate under the Community Preservation Act. And once the committee has passed it, those proposals all have to be approved at town meeting. So basically, town meeting has veto power. It can't really modify the proposals, but it can turn them down or pass them. Any money that is not spent or turned down by the town meeting or the Community Preservation Committee is just rolled over in a completely separate fund. It cannot be touched for other funding aspects. So let me talk about some of the details about the bylaw. A lot of the verbiage in the bylaw is set by state law. For example, the 5 members that are from town boards, those are all set by state law, and we really don't have the ability to amend that at this town meeting. The state law allows you to have between 2 and 4 additional members, and it does not specify how those additional members are selected. So there is some flexibility there. The bylaw as submitted was basically to imitate the towns around us. I looked at the Pepperell, Shirley, and Groton bylaws, and the way they had 2 additional members, and they had those members appointed by select board. Obviously, those things are things that could be changed. I will say that, if we do it by election versus appointment, I don't know what you guys thought about the last ballot, but it was pretty much a wasteland of empty spaces, and it does raise the bar. Not that I have a strong feeling of it, but I just want to make sure that we don't have a board with empty members. And so, I don't have a strong feeling, but I do feel that that's why I wrote appointed by the select board. One other point I would like to point out, if somebody wants to volunteer for this committee or run for it if we change that, there is a statewide group called the Community Preservation Coalition, which offers training to the new board. So when we set up this board, we'll have experts come in from the state and give us the rules and help us to get going in a professional manner, or with the committee that's formed. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, moderator, and thank you for not saying huzzah in the middle of my talk. So.
You just barely made it, Mr. Rideout. All right, Ms. Priest.
Thank you. So I think in having community input is important, and I was going to amend, but I guess I would ask the CPA Pact first. I think it would be beneficial to have elected members, not just appointed by the select board, and have a community voted presence on this important board. I don't know if anyone from the CPA Pact can answer, since the state law provides that we can have 5 to 9 members, and given Mr. Rideout's concern of not having someone to fill the seat, I don't know if I should amend to change the language or to add in 2 additional at-large elected members.
Okay, comments come on modifying, and I defer to Mr. Rideout to respond to that.
Those are 2 independent issues. You certainly have the right to, we could have anywhere between 2, 3, or 4 additional members, and that's up to this meeting here to decide. The bylaw as written says 2, just because that's the easiest, and whether they're elected or appointed is, again, a completely separate issue.
Okay. Comments come on. Ms. Hofstas?
Hi, yes, Carol Hofstas, 14 Alyssa Drive. I just had a question for Mr. Rideout, since he knows all about the CPA tax. So I know in 5 years you can rescind the CPA. So what happens?
Yeah, use the mic. And
If the town decides in 5 years that they do not want to no longer pay the surcharge on their property taxes, you have to wait 5 years, or you can request to rescind the CPA tax. So my question is, what happens to any funds that are left over if, in fact, we did rescind the CPA?
Okay, question comes on the motion, what happens to the money and the CPA?
So, yep, may I speak as president of the
Hold on, I don't know
CPA
who's making the
Pact?
point of order. Yeah. Well, I think it is relevant to the debate on whether or not the town wants to adopt this bylaw, so I think it's within the bounds. So if there is an answer, there may not be an answer. I don't know, Mr. Rideout, do you know?
I have no idea, sorry.
Okay.
You might want to ask town council.
Do you, Jim? Right, so it doesn't really deal with the funds. You have to look at the statute, figure out.
And that might have been another question last year when we adopted it, but right now they're adopting.
The committee,
To set
yeah.
up the committee.
The town council advises that here it's maybe a somewhat discrete issue, but here we're just talking about establishing the committee to operate the law that was passed adopting the Community Preservation Act last fall. So the committee doesn't really have anything to do with what happens to the money if the town at some point in time voted to rescind its vote. The committee itself, I think, would just go away. You'd have to look at the statute to figure out where does the money go. So unfortunately, we don't have an answer for that, but that really it doesn't relate to this article. So you probably were right.
Mr. Moderator?
Mr. Therian. I'm sorry, Mr. Therian, I have to defer to Ms. Craven. She was in line before you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As one of the officers on the committee with Mr. Rideout and Veronica Kell was on the committee, and Emmy Hoff and Karen Clement, and I can't remember who else, Bill, was in our meetings. I think everyone articulated that there was a great many varied uses, and the act passed pretty handily, and it has a great benefit for our community. So I'm excited to have it on the warrant and hopefully pass. And as Bill took the lead on gathering up the language, and we talked about it a bit, I remember mentioning that it would be great to have some elected representatives. So I would have no problem with an amendment on the floor to add both the elected representatives and the
Ms. Craven, if I could
appointed.
just make a point, because we don't have an amendment on the floor. You can't just say, I move to amend it.
I didn't yet. I wanted
Okay.
to know if they prefer 7 or 9.
Yeah.
If they would, like how they would prefer.
Right.
So I'm just saying,
That's what I thought.
either one,
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Okay, comments come on the motion. Mr. Therian?
My understanding is the town's already voted for this act. However, where we are right now is that you really can't do anything with it unless we approve this article here tonight. My comments about this is that we all should be aware that this is not an article that was generated by our town. This came to our town, and it has all the white hat legislation with all the buzzwords about affordable housing and conservation, everything that we all are concerned about in historic properties. So yes, that's all the appeal. But look at the legislation and look at the tax that'll be encumbered by this. So if we look at the town of Townsend, we have our historic areas. We have a massive amount of conservation now, and approximately 1/3 of the town's land base is state-owned public property, parks and woodlands. So although we already approved to have this Preservation Act, it can't really do anything. So now what's happening is every time there's a sale of a property that exceeds $100,000, there's going to be revenues received. And the question is, who's getting those revenues and how they're going to be dispersed? If the money is all going to be available to town, and then it's going to be exclusively for those purposes, there's just a lot to this that I don't know how it's going to play out. And unfortunately, we already voted it, so the tax revenue is already coming in. So I just wanted people to be aware of what this is and the unknowns here. And so again, as the town council pointed out, this is setting up this committee and moving forward so that you can actually enact the article that you voted for last time. Thank you.
All right, comments come on the motion. Ms. Stockwell.
Hi, Julia Stockwell, 203 Lunenburg Road. I read the law on this, and I'm not a lawyer, but if the money is not used for the purpose that it's slated for, my understanding is that it goes back to the state. So you can correct me on that if I'm wrong. Secondly, there is an article in here that I don't need to change the whole thing, but just to comment. The Historic District, one member from the Historic District Commission, should no historical commission exist, the member from the Townsend Historic Commission can be there. That is one and the same. It's a Historic District Commission / Historic Commission. That was voted on several years ago by the town. Okay, one last thing. If you meet the income requirements where you can opt out of the 1%, you have to file every single year.
Use the microphone, Julie.
If you opt out of paying the 1%, you have to file a form every single year. It's a 2-page form, and it's a difficult form because you have to put in all your income and all your insurance payments. So I think it's really an unfair situation. I think it's an unfair situation for the people.
What's your point of order?
This is outside the scope of this article. She's rehashing what we already voted to enact.
Good point.
I'm just giving information.
So, you're right. I think we should keep it to whether or not we want to adopt this article. The act has already been adopted by the town, so, Ms. Lord.
Thank you. The idea of the CPA is, in theory, it's great. Historical Society, great. There's a lot of good could be done. However, as someone else pointed out with regards to the housing that's being rammed down our throats, and it is literally being rammed down our throats.
Again, Ms. King.
No, Lord.
I'm sorry, Ms. Lord. I'm sorry. The act has already been accepted by the town.
However, with this, the housing, affordable housing, what people don't realize is it's not going to directly benefit the people of Townsend, and that was stated at one of the meetings that I went to, and that they were going to have to reword the verbiage of that.
Okay. All right. Comments come on the motion. Is anything else to be said? Ms. Priest?
I'd like to do a 2-part, very friendly amendment. First part being to change it to read one member of the Townsend Historical Commission / Townsend Historic District Commission, as designated by that commission. Is that correct?
Okay, one member of the Historical Commission / Historic District Commission?
Yes, as designated by that commission, just to clear that up.
Okay.
And I would amend it, instead of reading 2 members to be appointed at large by the select board, one member to be appointed at large by the select board, and one member to be at large to be elected by the voters.
What's your point of order? It is, they are. Yep. There are amendments to the motion and the content of the article. So what you're doing is changing the paragraph that references the Townsend Historical Commission to say one member of the Townsend Historical Commission / Historic District Commission?
Yes.
As designated by that commission.
Yes.
Are you keeping the rest of it? Because it seems
That would
redundant.
come out. No, it would replace with.
All right,
the
so
slash.
strike should no historical commission.
Strike the second sentence of that
Okay.
paragraph.
And the Second Amendment is to change it so that there is one member appointed at large by the Select Board and one member elected by the town.
Yes, one member at large elected by the town.
All right, the motion's been made. Is there a second? All right, motion's made and seconded to amend the motion. Don, you're going to give us something in writing? I think. All right, we can debate the a motion to amend. Yep, over here, I'm sorry.
Well, Karen
Ka-
proposed
Karen?
a 17 Balsam. I was going to move the question, but I think that's...
Well, let's just see if there's anything to be said about the motion to amend. Mr. Rideout?
Yes, the only comment I have about the motion to amend is that there are two parts. In that bylaw, you have to specify what is the initial term, because you need to set up the terms such that they're rotating. And so you have to specify whether the elected one is, how long the elected one is going to be for, and just make sure you specify that clearly. If it's elected, how long is the elected position for in the initial election, and how long is because they want to set it up so that people rotate in and out.
Can I ask a question about that? Just to make sure I have this right.
Yeah, that's a good point. Go ahead, Ms. Priest.
Yeah, what is it with the appointed in the current proposed?
I think the current says that the appointments by the Housing Authority and the two Select Board selections are for 3 years. So if you wanted to change that, the one Select Board appointment, then you have to decide how long is the elected position going to be.
3 years also?
Say again?
3 years also? Keeping it really all the same terms, except one is put in by the voters.
Okay.
You didn't have a question, right? You were just going to... Yeah, all right. You can do that next. Sorry, didn't notice. Didn't know it was live. She is, but I'm hoping to.
Okay. Motion's been made to amend the motion on Article 6 by changing 2 members at large to be appointed by the Select Board to 1 member at large to be appointed by the Select Board and 1 member at large to be elected by the voters, each for a 3-year term. This doesn't include the amendment to the Historic District Commission provision. Can that be accepted by the proponent as a friendly amendment? Mr. Rideout?
I don't think anybody knows what's going on right now.
Well, as I understood, there was going to be 2 motions to amend, 2 parts to amend here. One was changing the language in the section that talks about the Historic District Commission, or the Historical Commission, Because in Townsend, we have a Historic District Commission that is also the Historical Commission. So they, I think, wanted to change that to reflect the fact that they were one and the same. So that's what I heard. It's not in the motion, so I'm going to go with that's not in the motion. We could do another second motion to amend if we get that far. Okay. I'm sorry, but Rob, I think
I have a question.
Karen was.
Oh, she's going to move this. She's going to move the question after I had my.
All right.
Real quick. So I think the intent of this amendment was to have more voted members on the committee. I believe Conservation Commission, Historical Commission, Planning Board, Cemetery and Parks, and Housing Authority is all elected members from the community. So in effect, we're electing members and then providing the Board of Selectmen to appoint two. So I would say, as the article is written, we leave it as it is. There's been a lot of work gone into making this article, and to just come up and kind of make decisions here a little willy-nilly doesn't make any sense to me. So I would say, do not vote on this amendment.
All right. Kim, I have to recognize Karen.
Karen Reposa, 17 Balsam, move the question.
Okay. Motion's been made to move the question on the motion to amend. Okay. All those favor of moving the question on the motion to amend, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is before you. All those in favor of amending a motion on Article 6, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. No. The noes have it. The main motion is before you. Anything else to be said?
Karen Reposa, 17 Balsam, move the question.
I don't think you have to. We're going to go right to a vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 6, which is not amended, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. Majority. All right. The next article is Article 7, to see if the town will vote in accordance with the Town of Townsend Charter, Section 3-2, Selectmen, a composition and term of office to change from 3 to 5 members the Board of Selectmen. So I'm going to ask for a motion without reading the whole article. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote in accordance with the Town of Townsend Charter, Section 3-2, Select Board, A, composition and term of office, to change from 3 to 5 members as determined by a 2/3 vote of the annual town meeting, provided that such vote is ratified by the voters of the town at the next annual town election, and that such 5-member board would have 3 overlapping terms, so arranged that as nearly as an equal number of members as possible shall expire each year or take any action in relation thereto. Should this article pass at both annual town meeting and the annual town election, we request that an election be called within 90 calendar days to elect 1 select board member for a 3-year term ending at the annual town election in April 2029, and 1 select board member for a 2-year term ending at the annual town election in April 2028.
Okay. Motion's been made. Is there a second? Second. Do you have the motion?
I do.
Cindy.
You got to sign it. Okay, the motion has been made to change the number of persons on the select board from 3 to 5 members. If there is a 2/3 vote to do so at this meeting. Is there anything to be said? Ms. King?
Yes, I just want to say that this tell a little bit about this article. This was a citizen's petition. The reason it was put forth was, first of all, it's the second time this has been put forth. This was put forth, I think it was 2017. I forgot the year exactly. It passed at town meeting and it failed at the election. So here we are again in 2025, and the reason it got put back up was because, I know we have short memories, but just back last fall in September, we had 2 selectmen quit. They resigned, leaving us with 1 member of the Board of Selectmen on a 3-member board, which is not a quorum, and we were unable to have we had no Board of Selectmen between September and November. And I hate to say it, but to this date, I still don't know what happened in town during that time period, because we didn't have any elected officials, we had no open meetings, we had no agendas, we had no minutes, but somehow, I don't know what the hell happened, excuse my language, we don't know what happened during that time period. And then we had to have a special election and elected Laura Schifrin and Veronica Kell, and we just now got a third, because we actually last fall, we had a 3rd member of the Board of Selectmen resign after we had the special election. So that put this town in a horrible crisis, and if we have a 5-member board, we can have 2 people quit. We can have anything happen with those 2 people, but we'd still have a quorum. We would have 3 members of the Board of Selectmen to conduct the business of the town that we need them to. Plus, in support of our Board of Selectmen, I know there's a lot of stuff they have to do now. There are more regulations, there are more work to be done, and as you know, we're sitting here at this town meeting with all kinds of issues on the budget. And if they had 5 members to work all the issues that they have to work, that would make their job a hell of a lot easier. They'd have more people to be able to do the large amount of work that they need to do to work for us. Also, it helps. I mean, everybody up there knows I file open meeting law complaints. If there's 5 members, 2 members can actually talk to one another. They can go to boards together, and they're not in violation of the open meeting law. They can discuss. A new member of the board, which I've been there, you come onto a 3-member board, you cannot ask the other members of the board for help understanding anything. You're on your own, and it's terrible. Right now, we have a new member of the Board of Selectmen. She cannot talk to Veronica and Lori about what does this mean? What is this about? We can't do that. So if we have a 5-member board, you can team up. You can get help and get answers to questions. Having a 5-member board would be so helpful. And on one short more thing, that I know people are against, some people are against this. Well, we'll never get people to run for 5 positions. We can't get people to run for anything today. But I've not seen a problem with people wanting to be in charge. We have not had a serious problem with people running for Board of Selectmen. We do have trouble with people that want to do some of the harder work, or this is hard, I'm sorry, but do some of the board meetings that don't get as much attention. But when people want to be in charge, they're sometimes competitive. When Lori and Veronica ran, they had competition, both of them. This time we didn't have the competition, but we usually do. So I am confident that we won't have any trouble finding 5 people to be on that Board of Selectmen, and I ask the townspeople to support this article. Thank you.
Okay, comments come on the motion. Ms. Stockwell.
Thank you. Julia Stockwell, 203 Lunenburg Road. 30 years ago, I worked for a 3-member board in this town. So I know what it is working for a 3-member board. But I've also worked for a 5-member board. And if you think dealing with 3 members is difficult, you ought to try 5. Okay? It is really difficult to work with 5 because you get 5 different explanations and 5 different ideas. So we are a town. Back in 30 years ago, we had about 9,500 people. Today, we have under 9,000 people. So we have less people today than we did then. So I really recommend that you do not do this. This has been brought up several times through my lifetime, and it's always been put down. We have a hard time getting 3 members on the board, and when we do have competition, that's great. But look at all our other programs here today. I mean, how many committees are missing people? Even the Housing Authority, there's not anybody in there that could even take a vote. So I really recommend that you really think hard about having a 5-member board. Thank you.
Okay, comments come on the motion. I'm just going to observe that 250 years ago, we did have 5 selectmen on the Board of Selectmen, but the town's budget was about 145 shillings.
Mr. Moderator.
Ms. Kell, I think.
I just want to weigh in on this sitting in this chair, and I don't know which way is the right way to go. I will say that, yes, what you see at the meetings is what you see. We can't talk to each other outside of the meetings. So sometimes the meetings look really messy and really like we don't know what we're doing, but we don't know what anybody else thinks. So if you're someone that says you want transparency, with a 3-member board, you have that. With a 5-member board, there is something really, really good about that, because I can talk to each person. I can't tell them what each of the other people said, but I can talk to each person. So when I come into a meeting, I know where people stand on things, and I don't have to say, hey, I have an idea, and I'm wondering, maybe we should do this. Can we talk about that at a later meeting? No, because I've already talked to each person and asked to have it put on the agenda. So that is the good thing about a 5-member board, and I don't know which one is right. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, you just said it. It's a violation, isn't it? You're right. It's a violation. So you
Ms. Stockwell, you haven't been recognized.
Oh, because I gave my opinion? I'm speaking as a citizen. I should have come down there. Then would it have not been a violation?
It is not a violation in town meeting.
I would have said the same thing.
They are here as members of the select board. They're not in a open meeting of the select board. They're at town meeting.
in Julia Stockwell, 203 Lunenburg Road. You're right. But you really can't talk to you can talk to the people in your meeting. That's what the meetings are for. That's where the open transparency is at your meeting, whether it's 3 people or 5 people.
Yes, exactly.
So you still can talk to your other members.
Okay, comments come on the motion.
People, I can guarantee you that other boards with 5 people on them talk to each other outside the meeting. Guaranteed.
All right. I want to recognize Ms. Schifrin had raised her hand,
Okay.
Valerie, and then I'll recognize you.
Well, maybe you better go down there. Here, I'll plug my ears.
This is not our meeting, by the way.
No, it's not our
This
meeting.
is John's meeting. Having been in this position for 5 months now, 5.5 months, I want to tell you another side of this, and that is that of the town administrator. He has to speak to each of us individually before each meeting.
Ms. Schifrin, I'm going to interrupt you. Somebody is carrying on a conversation, so I would ask them to be respectful and let Ms. Schifrin have her say, please. All right,
Thank you,
Ms.
John.
Schifrin.
I didn't even notice that. But so I would be for a 5-member board or a 7-member board, because if you did that, he would only have to speak to 2 groups because there would not be a quorum. Once there's a quorum of whatever body you have, it splits his time more than what it should be in order to prepare for the meetings. And there is a lot involved. I mean, I really would be in favor of 5 or 7 if people would run. But look at our last election. Half of the positions that were available were blank. So, I mean, whatever the body wants is fine with us.
Comments come on the
me.
motion.
Fine with me.
Yep, Ms. Goodrich.
I really actually agree on this 5-person board, having been on a 5-person board for 9 years. And I'd like to reference the board beside us, which in this past couple weeks has had lots of conversations between 2 people, not in meetings. So if we're saying this would be a 5-member board, 2 people could have a conversation, just as the board beside us did in this budget preparation process, and we cannot do that. So just for comparison between the 2 boards. And other boards in town, I served on a 5-person board, and it was very nice, very, very nice. So that's my opinion. And also there's a lot of contention in town right now, I'll be completely honest, and a lot of people warn me about that. And spreading that out amongst more members of the community is, I think, actually more likely to get people involved. We'll be more likely to actually be able to be liaisons to the groups that we're assigned to. Right now, I've been able to contact 3 of the groups I'm a liaison to, just because it's a really long list. Most members don't go to those meetings. In other towns with 5 members, they'll at least go once or twice a year to those meetings, but when we have such a big group that we're assigned to, it's nearly impossible. So that's it.
Okay, comments come on the motion. Mr. Rideout.
Yes, Bill Rideout, 88 South Harbor Road. So I've been working on the rail trail for 20 years or so, so I've worked very closely with the Townsend Board of Selectmen and with the Groton Board of Selectmen, where the rail trail is also going. The Groton Board of Selectmen has, I believe, 5, maybe more, and it is incredibly stable. It is just unbelievable how many people have been a selectman for 10 years. I mean, how many people here have had selectmen here for 10 years? And I think it reduces the stress on the selectmen. Yes, it's going to be a stressful job anyway, but I think having that more than 3 people has really reduced the amount of stress that it takes to be a selectman. At least that is the feedback I've gotten talking to the Groton selectmen, and they would never go back to a 3. So, just my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, comments come on the motion. Looks like we are ready to vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 7, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. I believe the ayes have it by 2/3. Article 8, to see if the town will vote pursuant to the provisions of General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53 and a half, and in accordance with Chapter 104 of the town's general bylaws, to authorize the following fiscal year 2026 spending limits for the following revolving funds. And I'm not going to read each item. It's in the warrant. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Schifrin.
I move that the town vote to pursuant to provisions of General Law, Chapter 44, 53E and a half, and in accordance with Chapter 104 of the town's general bylaws, to authorize the following fiscal year 2026 spending limits for the following revolving funds. 1, recycling, $45,000. 2, recreation programs, $100,000. 3, facilities maintenance, $4,000. 4, cemetery, $35,000. 5, fire alarm, $4,000. 6, animal care program, $1,000. 7, fire EMS for fire EMS services, $5,000. 8, conservation, $20,000. 9, fire EMS for hazardous materials supplies replacement, $10,000. 10, firearms licensing, $6,000. 11, police public records requests, $3,000. 12, detail cruiser fees, $6,000.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded on Article 8. Anything to be said? Appears we are ready to vote. All those in favor of, no, Miss,
I have a question.
Jesus.
hold on, all right.
FinCom.
Let me
Yeah.
defer to the FinCom, Mr. Walker.
So I guess my question is, would this be an appropriate place to put forth the Board of Health's proposal to make a new revolving fund for the solid waste that he showed in his proposal that he did?
I don't think that would be in order. I'm not sure whether that comes into this as far as an article.
Okay.
I don't know if what was being proposed there was it amending this to change the amount or something?
Well, I guess my proposal, if it was appropriate, I'm just wondering if this is the appropriate place to say, add a new revolving fund.
Yes.
Yes.
Amendment to the motion.
Go ahead.
The fund already exists, so we just have to add it to the list. It's in there from 1992.
I'm going to have to defer to town council on that, if that's something that this article anticipates. I'm in doubt whether or not it comes within the 4 corners of the article.
But it's not.
Ms. Freeman?
that is
Attorney
not-
Freeman? Yeah.
Mr. Moderator, if I may?
That's
just
not
a minute.
included in the article, Mr. Moderator?
I'm sorry, Attorney Freeman, what?
It's not included in the article. So
No, it's not in the
So-
article, right.
Right, and then my question is, would this be the appropriate place to add it? But Don seems to say that that would be the next article is where we could add it.
Yeah, I noticed that there is an article, next, Article 9, to add the following revolving funds.
Right, so I guess, so I think, so it sounds like my question would be more appropriate for the next article than this one, which is fine.
Yeah, I would say it would be more appropriate, simply because this article lays forth, and to people that maybe didn't come here tonight,
Right.
they would have thought, okay, that's what the town is going to be voting about.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
So mine was only
I
a
think I'd feel
mine
more
was only a
comfortable
question,
if
so I
the
think
motion
it's-
to amend came under Article 9, and I still have reservations there, but let's take it one step at a time.
Yep.
I don't know, Town Council, Attorney Freeman, do you want to?
Well, on Article 9, it's specific as to what the fund is for. So I'm not sure that,
Well,
based
I would just-
on this warrant, I'm not sure that you can just amend it to add something different. Right, they're talking about.
The problem that we have here, folks, is it's a call as to whether or not the article that's being offered gives enough notice to everyone, apart from the folks here, as to what action the town is going to be taking. And it can be sometimes kind of specific. Obviously, an article can change with the amount, but you can't propose an article that, for example, proposes to rent a new school building, and then, because it's still dealing with school, decide that you're going to build a new school building. So there's a kind of a fine line in just trying to determine what things come within what's called the four corners of the warrant article.
Point of clarification, I would like, I'm not adding a new account. So, and I think everybody here would agree that trash is very well communicated to the voters that it was going to be a topic of discussion, given that has been said by every board. Trash would be cut out of the select board's budget, trash was going to be maintained in another form through the FinCom's budget, and the Board of Health has brought forward a proposal for trash. But my proposed amendment is to an account that already exists for this purpose. And I have the paperwork for town council to take a look at. It's already been adopted. So my amendment would be to add to the list of revolving funds, Solid Waste Fund, which was adopted on June 2nd, 1992 at annual town meeting under Article 27 in accordance with Chapter 37 of the town's general bylaws, with a fiscal 26 spending limit of $800,000 for the purpose of funding the fiscal year 26 curbside trash and recycling expenses as proposed by the Board of Health, to be funded by user fees, bag revenues, and any other voter-approved funding source or grant. And the purpose of this is to be able to continue with the curbside trash as presented by the Board of Health and supported by the Finance Committee.
All right, so the motion is being made to amend, and I am going to have to rule that out of order because it's not within the four corners of the article. If someone wanted to put in an article to include this, and I know that Solid Waste Fund was adopted in 1992 or thereabouts, but it's not in this article to add a new thing. The revolving funds, as I understand it, and FinCom can certainly speak to this, turn on money that the specific department takes in for a certain thing, and that then the town meeting is authorizing that money to be spent by that department for that particular purpose. At this point, we don't have a category here for solid waste. As much as I think everybody here would like to see it, we just don't have it. I don't know if anybody in FinCom...
Point of clarification.
Ma'am, I'm going to ask, I've got Dr.
sorry.
Roman Ramirez over here, and
Dr. Christian Roman Ramirez, I'm Chairman of the Board of Health. So in order for, and I hope it gets to be added to the budget, in order for the Pay As You Throw program can be successful and not have it managed by the Board of Selectmen, but having it managed by the Board of Health, there should be an amendment on the revolving account, on the solid waste category. That needs to be amended in order for us to implement the program, and if the people agree to it. Any feedback from the Finance Board about?
Well, I think the feedback we got from the moderator and the town attorney was that this article is not the appropriate place to do that by law. Is that correct, Mr. Moderator?
that would be my opinion.
Okay.
That's right. It's not on the warrant. Well, if I'm going to indulge you just a little bit more, Ms. Priest, because this isn't a debate between you and I, okay? I'm going to let the selectmen speak to that, because the procedure for setting the warrant is up to the selectmen. And if other departments have things they want to be included in the warrant and the selectmen don't do it, then they would have to file a request prior to March 1st that it be put on the warrant.
Rule me out of order, but I believe the selectmen did it without including FinCom, and FinCom can speak to that, so I'll be out of order on my own accord.
FinCom, any comments?
Really, there's nothing. When we prepare this, it's prepared by the group code and the existing groups that have been set up, and within each of the groups, like police, you'll see the grouping, and each individual account is created, and the money is coming in and going out on those. So this particular one for Article 8, the only thing under Board of Health is the recycling that is set up today. If we were going to, and this Article 8 is referring to the balances and the monies that are going to be coming in and going out of those accounts. If we were to be able to do it, it would have needed to be probably in Article 9.
So what would we do on
But it
that?
was, but again, we didn't see the, have access to put input and know in time to get it into the warrant to add that, add the Board of Health.
All right, comments come on the motion. What, Ms. Lloyd?
Point of clarification. Okay, I'm dying to ask this, okay, so please indulge me. I attended the last meeting, I believe, of the Select Board via Zoom, and the board went into executive session to talk about we're going to generate the budget and come back with it. Now, the executive session usually is what, for collective bargaining, not to get together a budget to present before the townspeople. That's what was said on Zoom. So why was this allowed? Executive session.
I have to rule that out of order. You're talking about something completely different
Oh, it has
than
to
the
do with
article
whole
that's in front of
budget. It
us.
has to do with the budget. The FinCom didn't know about something here, and, I mean, it went to an executive session.
That's something, Ms. Lloyd, that we can't address at this meeting. Ms. King.
Hi again. I just want to speak briefly that this article is pretty cut and dry. It's an article that gets voted on every town meeting that we have. It's a required article for us to authorize the current revolving funds that are already in existence to function, that we have to vote on these things. And all of these, as has been said in one way or another, that these are all funds that are actually receiving fees from one place or another from us for different things, everything from getting a cemetery plot to asking for police record requests, firearms licensing. Those are things that we pay money to, and the money goes someplace. Rather than having it go into the general fund, it goes into these revolving funds so they can continue their services. If we can't, I agree, we really can't add a new one at this point, especially one that doesn't currently have funds in it, which would have to be a process through the Board of Selectmen. I think it would be appropriate if, as we're going through the rest of the evening, if somehow we get trash back, and somehow through this alternative budget process to put these fees that Dr. Ramirez had discussed in the slideshow that he gave us, if that were to come back, that in the future, at a future town meeting, between then and now, and the new town meeting, that someone could, or the selectmen could establish a revolving fund for that in order to cover that process, or it could be done by petition at a future annual town meeting. And I think that would make sense. But I think it makes no sense, even if it were, because it would have no money in it, if we were to establish some type of revolving fund. So I think we should just pass this and move on with our night. It's getting later and later.
Yep.
Thank you.
It is.
Point of clarification. If
Yes,
it's not here, you think it might be in Article 9, but also in the budget that's in the warrant, there is a line item still for trash. So can it be added? And even in the Select Board's budget and in the FinCom's budget, there is a solid waste line item. So can it be added there and then transferred at special town meeting whenever that happens in the summer?
Procedurally, I think that certainly that the budget can be modified, but that isn't really addressing this article right here. Whether or not that money can later be transferred into a revolving fund is a financial question that's beyond my wheelhouse. And so I think that would have to be referred to the FinCom and the Selectmen. But I would have to say, Ms. Craven, that it's outside the scope of this article about what are we going to do on the budget. Let's get to the budget first.
But do you think you said you think it might be in Article 9 that it's possible?
Well, Article 9 is to amend the authorized revolving funds by adding another revolving fund. I think it's got more chance of doing something there than Article 8, which is pretty finite about the existing funds that exist.
Thank you for that point of clarification.
You're welcome. Ms. Jackson?
Move the question, please.
All right, move the question. I think if you'll indulge me, I think we're ready to vote. So I think we can skip the motion to move the question because nobody else seems to want to say anything, right? Good. All right, all those in favor of the motion on Article 8 for the revolving funds, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Article 9, to see if the town will vote pursuant to the provisions of General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, to amend Chapter 104 of the town's general bylaws by amending Section 1F thereof, entitled as Authorized Revolving Funds, adding thereto the following revolving funds, and to assign the following fiscal year 2026 expenditure limit thereto. And it proposes to add Town Hall Public Records request, authority to spend funds by the Select Board for public records request fees, and covers the cost of personnel fulfilling public records requests with a spending limit of $5,000. Is there a motion? Yep. Ms.
Mr.
Kell.
Moderator, I move the town vote pursuant to the provisions of General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, to amend Chapter 104 of the town's general bylaws by amending Section 1F thereof, entitled Authorized Revolving Funds, adding thereto the following revolving fund, and authorizing the following fiscal year 2026 spending limit therefore. Revolving fund, Town Hall Public Records requests, authority to spend funds, the Select Board, revenue sources, public records request fees, use of funds to cover the costs of personnel fulfilling public records requests with a spending limit of $5,000.
Motion's been made and seconded. Board of Selectmen, do you have any comments about this? article?
I can comment by saying that there have been many, many public records requests coming in that are quite broad over the course of the past several months. And a lot of staff time has gone into fulfilling those requests. And where, if it's just something like, I want the minutes of this meeting, or could you get me this, that's an easily retrievable thing. But when it's years and years of back records, it takes a lot of employee time. And so it seems that it is reasonable to charge some amount of money to make up for the time that the employees are spending fulfilling public records requests as opposed to town hall duties, I guess. Is there anything else to say on that?
Okay, no comments come on the motion. Thank you. Ms. Spofford?
Kathleen Spofford, 312 Main Street. How will these funds be distributed and to who? Because I was the RAO for 8 years, and we did not get any extra money for doing any of those services. And if the fee doesn't come from the department that it's requested from, the RAO does not know what to charge because we don't know how much time goes into it.
Those are legitimate concerns, and we're working on a new public records request policy in order to incorporate that, and this fund is part of that. So,
Okay, Dr. Roman Ramirez.
Dr. Christian Roman Ramirez, Chairman of the Board of Health. If it is possible on this article, and you may correct me, Mr. Moderator, to increase the revolving account on the Board of Health that manages solid waste so that we can implement the pay-as-you-throw program that I proposed earlier in this meeting.
All right, the question comes on whether or not this article can be amended to add a revolving fund which already exists for solid waste.
It's not. It's adding the hiring the amount. If I'm not a finance geek, but what I mean is that increasing the revolving account so that we can implement and based on our people's vote to work on this, because if we don't increase that revolving account, and it will be impossible for us, and it's the Board of Health's interest is to work on this trash situation.
All right. It's my opinion that given all the agitation that the town has had regarding solid waste and everything, that if anybody didn't think that the issues regarding solid waste were not going to come up at this meeting, they are very badly misinformed. So I'm going to rule that a motion along those lines would be within the four corners of Article 9, if such a motion is made.
but hey.
Ms. Priest.
I'd like to make a motion to amend,
All right, what's your amendment?
to add the revolving fund, solid waste fund, adopted June 2nd, 1992, at annual town meeting under Article 27, in accordance with Chapter 37 of the town's general bylaws, with a fiscal year 26 spending limit of $800,000 for the purpose of funding the fiscal year 26 curbside trash and recycling expenses, to be funded by user fees, bag revenues, and any other voter-approved funding source or grant.
Second.
All right, motion's been made. You get that in writing, Ms. Priest?
I do.
Just make sure we're hitting all the boxes here. The revolving fund is the solid waste revolving fund. authority to spend is by the Board of Health,
Yes, it's in our bylaws, and it's under the control of the Board of Health.
and the revenue source is fees and
User fees, bag revenues,
Pay-as-you-throw.
grants, and any other voter-approved funding source.
the use of the fund is for rubbish disposal?
Curbside trash and
Curbside-
recycling.
Okay. The spending limit is 800,000. Okay. All right, to add to the list of revolving funds, Solid Waste Fund, which was adopted June 2nd, 1992 at the annual town meeting under Article 27. And recorded as Chapter 37 in the town's general bylaws, with a fiscal year 26 spending limit of 800,000 for the purpose of funding the fiscal year 26 curbside trash and recycling expenses to be funded by user fees, bag revenues, and any other voter-approved funding source or grant. Okay, that is the motion to amend the motion on Article 9. Is there anything to be said?
Mr. Moderator, could I?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Members of the Select Board, if you can just say Mr. Moderator, because I can't really see you, so I would.
All right.
Let me have this person, and then I'll refer to you, Ms. Kell.
Hello, my name is Mary Foster, 22 Hillside Drive. I have a question for Town Council. So, Chapter 37 of the bylaws that deals with solid waste fund, it references Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 28. That is a totally different section of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, than what the bylaw Chapter 104 references. And Chapter 104 sets up the revolving funds that we just voted on Article 8. And Chapter 104 references Mass General Law 44, Section 53E. So is it a revolving fund governed by Section 53E? Or is that the intent of Chapter 37 referencing Mass General Law Section 28C? Which I think refers to debt obligations with solid waste management, such as shutting down a town landfill. So I'd like Town Council to weigh in on that, because I'm not sure we actually have a solid waste revolving fund at the moment in the bylaws.
Okay, question comes on the motion. Has certain legal elements to it, and I don't know if Town Council can address those issues tonight, because it's a fairly involved track of references. My understanding is that the town did adopt a solid waste revolving account. So this might take a little more time to analyze than we have tonight.
Right, but it doesn't make sense to me that a reference to Chapter 44, Section 28C, that the intent of that was the same as the references to Section 53E, which governed all of the revolving funds. My point is that I don't think we have already in the bylaws established a solid waste revolving fund.
I'm told, or at least that's been represented, that there was, but for some reason it's not being used. So, yep, you go ahead.
So it references subsection F here.
much covers it, doesn't it?
Right, it does cover
Our discussion about
collection
debt
and
obligations is
disposal.
additional to it.
Correct. Yeah. I guess
Well, it would be,
my question is that 9, that Article 9 is to establish a new
account.
A new
And
account.
we have one.
And we have one. Really, what should have happened is it should have been funded under this.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do think that as far as them having one that exists, it does appear that they have one that exists. And
All right, we're looking at Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 28C, subparagraph F.
this is the item.
And the article that was adopted in 1992 was to amend the general bylaws to add the following article, that the Board of Health may establish from time to time amend and authorize collection fees for the collection and/or disposal of solid waste pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 28CF. 28CF talks a lot about debt, but it's not the only thing it talks about. It talks about any city or town acting by or through the officer, officers, board, committee, or other body authorized by law, if any, to fix, revise, charge, and collect such fees and other charges. Otherwise, acting by and through its chief executive officer, is hereby authorized to fix, revise, charge, and collect fees and other charges for any facilities or services provided by such city or town, as relate to the collection of solid and disposal of solid waste. And then it goes on to talk about if you have debt obligation, you can use the money for that. But I think that's irrelevant in this situation.
But why wasn't it originally adopted under Section 53E, where all of the other revolving funds are?
I think there's been some changes in the laws since 1992, and maybe more things have been coming under 53 and a half. I know 53E generally deals with establishing funds where the town can put money in. I'm not sure if they're considered revolving funds, but I'm not positive about that. Are they revolving funds? Of 53E?
yes.
All right, so the thing is, this article was adopted. I don't know if anybody has the institutional knowledge from the Board of Health as to why this didn't carry through with the things that we are dealing with today. You know, I have to ask, why don't we have that in Article 8 saying solid waste revolving fund? I don't know if the selectmen have any.
So,
thoughts?
Mr. Moderator, I guess my...
Thank you, Attorney Freeman.
My question is, how is this within the scope of the warrant that was posted? Can we, as a body, post a warrant that these are the things we're going to talk about at town meeting, and then decide that, oh, we're going to add something that, A, isn't in the published budget, and B, is an addition that people that are not sitting here that might want to be here aren't able to weigh in on? Is this within the scope of the four corners of the warrant, is my question. This is something that I asked about because it seemed like a reasonable way to do things. And the answer I got was that it was too late to put it into, that you could not amend the motion to add something that's outside of the scope of what you are talking about budgetarily. And yes, although trash is definitely a budget topic, it was voted down at the override and therefore off the table for the warrant that we are discussing now. This doesn't mean that it couldn't come back another way at a different meeting.
I think procedurally, it would be better to bring this back on another day, because if we do adopt this and I am wrong about it, then it's not going to be valid. The other thing that's, I think, problematic is the fact that apparently we do have a revolving fund for solid waste. And it was not put in Article 8 to put the money in, collect the money for trash pickup and and for recycling bags and pay-as-you-throw, and that if that money had been put into that revolving account that exists, we'd be voting on that now. But Dr. Roman Ramirez.
Mr. Moderator, to be respectful toward the Board of Selectmen, I personally learned that the trash was not going to be on discussion, and I didn't learn it from a communication from the Board of Selectmen. I learned it because I saw it someplace. And the Board of Health had to do an emergency meeting last Friday. And last Friday, we had a meeting with was Mr. Leclerc was and I as quorum for the board, and we asked feedback to the community about how can we resolve this situation. And the fact is that we didn't have the time because the board had already decided that trash was not going to be discussed. And what we are asking is to add or amplify the revolving account of solid waste that has the Board of Health for, as proposed by Ms. Priest, $800,000, so that we can have a affordable trash program for this community. Because we as board, we are very concerned that if we don't make any decisions about this, on the long term, this is going to be a public health problem, and that is why it was not included, because at the end, and the people have to understand, the Board of Selectmen took the trash contract out of the Board of Health's hands, and they wanted to work it out on their own and not leaving it to its board.
Comments come on the motion to amend.
Public records.
Yeah, right over here.
Hi, Selena Thomas, 99 Warren Road. My question is, if we have a spending limit of $800,000, I think so.
Maybe not.
Am I not close enough? Sorry.
Get closer to it.
Sorry. Selena Thomas, 99 Warren Road. My question is, if we have a spending limit of $800,000 and we do not get the revenue that we expect, how is that money, are we allowed to spend to the 800 and then we have to get money from somewhere else, or do we just spend the money that comes in? Does that make sense?
I think if this were to be passed, I think that the 800,000 would be the limit that could be spent. That's all. If there's no money, there's not insufficient money, then you can't spend it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Templeton?
Yeah, Rob Templeton, Hillside Drive. I guess it seemed, I guess am I allowed to ask a question not about trash? And on the amendment here? Or the
Not
article?
about trash or about this article, you can ask any question.
All right. So on the article, I understand what we're trying to do here, and I understand the question around, the process, right? So my answer is, if you're developing a policy or a process to do these requests, then that policy is going to need to come to town meeting to be approved, or no?
No, it wouldn't come to town
Okay,
meeting.
so
It's
you're
a
gonna-
selectman policy.
You're going to develop a policy on how that money is going to be funded. And for $5,000, I can appreciate that. I guess turning my question to the trash, I haven't seen much on how $800,000 is going to be managed by the Board of Health from a revolving fund, and it seems like we're trying to jam this thing into this article here without a lot of policy behind it. And I guess my concern is that if we're authorizing the Board of Health to spend $800,000, I'd like a little more information behind how that money is going to be spent than just the 3 slides that we went through earlier tonight.
Okay, comments come on the motion to amend, right? All right. Ms. Priest?
I just wanted to address Ms. Kell's question on the scope. of this being valid. And so what I would say is, in your budget printed in the warrant, trash is fully funded. So why, and now we're not voting on that budget. So who would come to bring a motion or to bring an article for the warrant by March 1st when the budget printed in the warrant has the full trash amount in it? And the override was never specified for a purpose.
If you were at the April 16th meeting, I am certain that you understood that if the override did not pass, the trash would not be funded.
But then how do you bring an article?
And it was also posted on the website, the presentation that was made, and the discussion that was had in every meeting that the Board of Selectmen had. The reason that we came out of executive session and trash was gone was not because we discussed it. We didn't talk about trash at all. It was the only big item that was on that functional segment, and we already knew that the override didn't pass, as did, I hope, everybody in town. When the override overwhelmingly did not pass, that $300,000 that we stated would be gone, would not be included in the budget, was not included in the budget. And the functional segment dropped by the amount of the trash contract.
I understand that, but how would we submit something by March 1st to include specifically this fund if you yourself are saying the decision was made on April 16th? So I think the funding of trash, as evidenced by your budget and the full funding amount in the warrant, is a topic of the warrant. And I don't understand the select board's position against having a trash plan.
I think you heard my statement, I hope, in the report that we do support trash. I think the question that came around with, if we're short, how do we fund it? We do not have the funds, and I haven't heard all of what FinCom came up with today on trash. And my concern, which I have voiced, it's on record with meetings that we've had jointly with the Board of Health. The question is, if we don't have enough people participating, if we don't have enough pay-as-you-throw revenue, where does the money come from if we don't have the funds to pay the Shaw contract? Where does that come from? And that is the question. And so until there's an answer to that, I mean, maybe I was hopeful that on Friday, I was told that Mr. Shaw was working with the town for a program similar to Dunstable's. And I was hopeful to hear something about that. But what I heard was that Mr. Shaw wanted the town to figure out what we were doing, and the contracts that were in play were the contracts that have been in play all along. And so how do you guarantee, when we don't have a town that's willing to fund an override, and it's been pretty clear to me for the past 5 years that we don't, how do you responsibly say, why, of course, I'll sign that contract? And, we might have been better off if the people that went in private paid, and I understand why people did, if they had stayed with the contract and embraced the pay-as-you-throw. Maybe we could have realized the monies that we hoped to make from that program. But Laurie and I, in one of our very first select board meetings, were told that DOR said we need to come up with $200,000 more. And people say, oh, it was going to be through cuts. Where were those $200,000 in cuts going to come from halfway through the fiscal year from the general budget? I honestly don't know. And our stabilization is at 1.1, a little bit more million. We don't have a huge pot of free cash. If you look at other towns that have lower free cash, lower stabilization, they have a large pot of free cash. Anyway, I'm talking a lot, I don't mean to, but I think the question about the 800,000 and where is the money coming from if we don't have the revenue coming in, where does that come from? If that can be answered, I'm on board.
Comments come on the motion. Dr. Roman Ramirez, I think Ms. Hoff is deferring to you.
So regarding the 800,000, the money will come from the annual structure-based fee. And this is just a conservative number plus the payment of the purple bag. So this is just a rough a conservative estimate, and the only money that will be coming from it will be from stabilization, which will be 157,980, if I'm not mistaken, and what has been reported by the Finance Committee in conversations with the board and with the community as well. So it's not that the town, from stabilization, they will be funding 157,980, but the rest of it, the revenue will come from the structured fee that initially the select board had pushed it, and the Board of Health adopted it as a Plan B if the program, if the override didn't pass, and it didn't pass. So this is the alternative that we as board are presenting to the people. And in order for us to work with this plan, this has to be done. And other than that, we just need to work on this, and quickly. Thank you.
All right, going back over here, Ms. Hoff.
Hi, Emmy Hoff, North End Road. So I work off of a revolving fund, and I think there might be a little bit of confusion. I know that the good doctor here just gave you a rundown of where the funds come from, but I just wanted to reiterate that when we come before with a spending limit of up to, in my case, $100,000, I then spend that year making the money I need to in order to spend it out. Now, my understanding from the Board of Health and our Board of Health agent that is in Town Hall is that they have been in negotiation conversations with Shaw's, and that things are going to be lowered in order to fit where we need to be for recycling and trash curbside pickup. So that is in works, and it is happening. Now, that does not have to be a firm, complete answer right now. There is an entire year to produce revenue. You produce programs, you get grants, you do fundraising. It is, in this case, there's trash bags. You have that year to make your funds in order to do what you need to do. Now, the Board of Health's job is to get that contract as low as it possibly can be, and then it's their job to go out and get those grants and to find those extra funds to follow through with the commitment that they've made to the town. But they cannot do that if you don't put the account that is in existence into play. So that's, again, as somebody that handles a revolving fund, if it exists, it should have been on Article 8, even if it had a zero balance for the spending limit. It wasn't, so it does need to be put into play now, because it does exist. Thank you.
Comments come on the motion to amend. Ms. Kelly?
Kelly, 5 Tourist Lane. I do believe that we need to allow this on this motion. If we do not, it means that we can't consider FinCom's budget. It means that as a taxpayer, we're not being given the opportunity to consider the two budgets that are ahead of, that were being presented tonight, and that we're completely ignoring the work that FinCom has also done. As a taxpayer, I would like to see, I haven't made up a full understanding of either budget, pro or con. I have questions about it all, but as a taxpayer, I want to try to see what our options are. If we can potentially save town trash and save more town employees with FinCom's budget, then I need to see that budget. But if you do not allow this because of a procedural vote or whatever is happening, it means that as taxpayers, we're not being allowed the opportunity to actually weigh in on a town budget, that we're only going to be able to consider the select board's budget and not what FinCom has done. And that, in my opinion, is just disrespectful to the work that they have also done, and it's disrespectful to the work that the Board of Health has done. It may be at the end, when we get to the budget articles, we may vote for the selectmen's budget and say, fine, that's the one we're going for, but let the people have the opportunity to make that decision, because if you don't allow, we can put this on here and we can put $800,000, and then the selectmen's budget passes over the FinCom's budget. It doesn't matter, because if there's no money in there, you're not spending it anyways. So we're getting lost in a procedural situation here that will 100% strip the opportunity that the community has to make a decision. Do we want to fund town trash through the option that the Board of Health has made? Do we want to attempt to save additional employees through whatever FinCom budget is being presented? But allow the taxpayers the opportunity and the voters that showed up to make that decision, please.
Okay.
Mr. Moderator.
Ms. Kell.
I see that our regular town council, Adam Costa, is in the back, and I was wondering if we could ask him to join us at the table to address some of these questions.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ms. Kell, what's the question specifically?
We are on Article 9. This is the question about adding a revolving fund to the warrant article, and whether or not that is, there's an amendment on the floor to add an additional fund. So just weigh in on that. Thank you.
An existing additional fund.
I'm just reviewing the language of the proposed amendment. So through you, Mr. Moderator, to Ms. Kell. So as you know from my past practice, I typically defer in the first instance to the moderator because questions of scope are within the moderator's purview. That having been said, I know that your moderator will often ask the question of me. I appreciate some of the comments. I've been here for the past 10 or 15 minutes, so I've been able to hear some of the comments from the previous speakers. I appreciate maybe the sentiment, at least of some at town meeting, that the people ought to be heard or should have an opportunity to weigh in on the budget, and maybe they'd be prohibited from doing so in the manner that they'd like if the scope of this particular article is not broadened or does not include this proposed amendment. My role is somewhat different. I don't get to make a judgment call as council as to what the people ought to be able to do in a perfect world, or when they should or shouldn't be able to voice their concerns or their preferences. What I have to do is I have to look at the article that's before you and before town meeting and decide, in my opinion, based upon my experience in responding to questions of scope, whether the amendment is something that the public would have had notice of having read the warrant article as it was printed in the warrant. In my opinion, and it's nothing more than my opinion, and you can take it or you can leave it, this one isn't even a close call. This is clearly a warrant article that proposes the creation of one new revolving fund. It provides the title of that fund, it provides the revenue source for that fund, it provides the anticipated use of those funds, and it establishes a spending limit for that fund. It does not propose the creation of any additional revolving accounts, and so if we're talking about a different revolving account than the town hall public records request, I would consider it to be beyond the scope of the article. Now, I appreciate the comment that I just heard sort of voiced from the public, which is, well, this is an existing revolving fund. I don't know that that changes the analysis at all. I am aware, and I will say, I see here the reference is made to the solid waste fund. I'm aware of the reference that exists because I was asked about it approximately 9 or 10 months ago, and it was brought to my attention again earlier today, or maybe it was even yesterday, that there is a provision in your code, your general bylaws, that make reference to this solid waste fund. What was not clear to me from that code reference is whether or not the fund actually exists. I understand that the code indicates that the fund would be created and effectively adopted the statutory provision that allowed for the creation of the fund. What I don't know is whether in 1992, when that particular provision was adopted at town meeting, or in the years since 1992, at this point over 30 years, whether that action has actually occurred, whether that fund has actually been created, is actually in existence, whether it's ever been funded, whether it's ever been used. Certainly the authority exists to create the fund, but whether the fund actually exists, I simply don't know. That would probably be a question for your treasurer, more so than it would be for me. But on the question that you've asked, whether or not the creation of an additional revolving fund is within the scope of this particular article, Article 9, my opinion would be that it's not. And again, that's not expressing any sentiment as to whether it should be or what effect that might have on other warrant articles. It's simply a question of whether it's within the four corners. And if I were a resident reviewing the warrant online, reading the warrant at home, and I saw this, whether I would be on notice that there was a potential the town meeting would be creating and establishing a spending limit for an entirely different fund than the one that's referenced here. And I think the answer to that question is no.
No, not at all. All right. I have to consider town council's opinion and Attorney Freeman as town council's opinion. And although I would certainly like to accommodate the people that have expressed a desire to do this, I'd have to concur that it would be outside the scope of that specific article. If it had been to see if the town wanted to adopt additional revolving funds, maybe it could pass because it's a generic article. But here it is a specific one, so I would have to rule that it is outside the scope. So the motion is back to just Article 9 for Town Hall Public Records Request.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Can I ask a question since town council is here?
Yep.
Would it be appropriate for him to review whether or not this fund would have been more appropriate under Article 8 and whether or not we can have that reconsidered?
I think the same problem pertains because, and I'll ask town council if you want to respond to that, Attorney Costa.
Thank you, and again, through you, Mr. Moderator. So Article 8 established the spending limits, and so I think that the problem would be the same. It's obviously a different article, but the article establishes limits for existing funds. There is no reference to the solid waste fund within that list. Whether there should or shouldn't be, again, I can't say because I don't know whether the fund actually exists on paper in the records of the town or the town treasurer. But what we're proposing to do here is to establish a new spending limit for the account when that account wasn't even listed within Article 8. So I would have the same issue of scope in that context, unfortunately.
Thank you, Mr. Costas. I guess in relation to town council's comments about we're having a gap of knowledge here. If the solid waste account was set up in 1992, what happened to it? And is the treasurer here? Does Ms. Dunnett, do you have any info on the solid waste account? I guess the question comes is the town apparently adopted it sounds like a revolving fund for solid waste, or at least an account for solid waste. Is there such an account?
Not to my knowledge. There is an account for the recycling center. I cannot speak to the exact what that was established for.
Okay, so that's just recycling. that's the recycling account in Article 8? Okay, okay. Unfortunately, folks, I think, time goes by, and people, forget what things were done, and maybe they don't do things they were authorized to do. It'd be nice to be able to go forward with this now, but I think procedurally, we're going to have to take a rain check on that, and hopefully, it's not impossible to call a special town meeting to deal with this. So, Dr. Roman Ramirez.
Mr. Moderator, with all due respect, and I'm requesting a reconsideration on the board's proposal on voting on adding to the revolving account, because, I mean, if we wait for another town hall meeting, when it's going to be, and we, the board, are trying to work on with the trash situation, and Shaw's is willing to work with us too, but we need to have the proper legal and financial equipment for the board to work on this, since the board is trying to resolve this situation, and in which either the current or the previous board, the Board of Selectmen, had taken this out of the board's or health's hands and caused this disaster. And we need to work on it. And I'm appealing to your consideration, and I think that the people here don't want this to be a public, an emergency public health situation. Those are my words. Thank you.
With all due respect, Doctor, I certainly understand your frustration with this. To one question you posed is, how long will it take to call a special town meeting? The selectmen could call a special town meeting in 14 days. I mean, you have to have some time to decide what's going to be on that warrant, but the 14 days notice has to be given to call a special town meeting. So, unfortunately, I don't think that doing something that's ultimately going to be proved to be wrong is the way to correct the problem. So, again, my ruling has to be that to amend Article 8 prospectively. I know you're suggesting, can we reconsider it? And I don't think that's a motion to reconsider it. But if it were to be reconsidered, I'd have to rule that adding to that list would be outside the scope of the warrant article. So we have Article 9, again, only on the Town Hall Public Records request.
May I
Ms.
speak to
Craven.
Article 9? Thank you. So for this particular request, I think it's a bit premature. I think it was Rob Templeton that pointed out where's the policy around it and what would it look like. And to be clear, and I know Veronica Kell experienced this with me as we sat for 3 hours looking at the budget, and I said, this is not here. And she said, oh yes, click here, and it wasn't there. So there's multiple things right now that we just cannot access, which has caused a flurry of FOIA requests. I can tell you I've never made one in all of my years here, but because we can't access the basic information, we have to ask for everything. And before every FOIA request that I've put forward to the clerk is I've gone to another department's, municipality's website to try to find the information to make sure that it's publicly available, and it's not, so we have had to be a little bit of a bother just to get the basic information that would typically be on our website. So I can tell you, if it's there, I hope never to have to make another Freedom of Information request. It's only because all of the links are broken. So I don't ever
All right,
want to do
Kim,
it again.
I think we're getting a little bit beyond the scope of the article.
No, it is, because they're asking for money for something, and there's no policy, and I don't think there's a real problem, except for I think Veronica might have said vegetables are asking for her phone, which I didn't understand and seems nonsensical, but I don't think we have a real problem, and we have a $130,000 grant, I'm understanding, to come in that hopefully will fix all of this. Because I do believe the selectman really wants to fix it. Like, they're not doing something wrong, it's just broken.
Ms. Strawberry?
All right, I'm gonna recognize
Yeah.
Ms. Goodrich.
We'd actually discussed this in the select board meeting today, and I
I've fielded a lot of concern about the current website. I cannot access most of our policy documents, for the record. So that conversion for the town website has some very, very serious errors. And this board is aware of that. No one on this board had anything to do with that. And it's a top priority of us.
We're the last board.
Yeah,
Please go
yeah.
on record.
It was the company was contracted for the website conversion and that process. So that contract's coming up. It's going to be rescinded at the end of May, and we're going to be hiring someone. And that is first on my personal agenda for this year, is to get all of that material up to date. So everybody, there's committee members and board members that don't understand that some of these policies apply to the finance committee, the library trustees. I didn't know that because that's not available to anybody. So that is the number one priority. So hopefully the freedom of information requests do go down. But I also do know, I believe, and town council can say this, that because we are a town under a certain population, we can charge per request because.
Yeah, what's your point of order, Mr. Rala?
Sorry. I'm done, don't worry, I said enough.
We have just spent an indeterminate amount of time listening to items beyond the scope of this motion. We have to come to the point where we vote on it.
I think that the discussion that was presently being discussed was the public records request. By all means, I would encourage people to just take a look at this stuff and not feel like everybody's got to comment about every little thing, because we're not going to get to the budget tonight, folks. We're going to have to come back tomorrow night. So,
Fine.
I'm going to recognize the gentleman over there and then Mr. Peduzzi.
Mike Kelly, 5 Taurus Lane. Mr. Moderator, this goes back to Article 8, where you kind of ruled that we should discuss the whole revolving door for the recycling, move to Article 9. Now that we have information about Article 8 after the fact from Town Council and the Treasurer that there is a revolving account for Board of Health, I think Article 8 should be reopened for discussion. Because I think the revolving account for Board of Health should be moved to $800,000.
All right, I already
You have
determined,
two separate
based on
rulings,
town council's
but you have
advice,
two separate rulings.
that
You ruled before Town Council said we weren't allowed really to discuss it during Article 8. Had he been here during Article 8, and the Treasurer had chimed in with what the opening revolving account is.
It appears that my ruling on Article 8 wasn't incorrect, even if my opinion about Article 9 I thought was correct, but was not correct.
Well,
If you want to move to reconsider Article 8, I'm going to tell you that it is out of order. It's outside the four corners of the article to amend that article to add
Mr.
the
Moderator,
solid waste.
unfortunately, I think both you and Town Council were incorrect about Article 8, that there was an open revolving account for Board of Health. Article 8 showed for recycling, and that's under the
There
Board
is
of
an
Health.
article for recycling, not for solid waste.
But it's under Board of Health's discretion.
All right. You're not going to speak unless you're recognized. Finish your thoughts, Mr. Kelly.
That's all I have, with due respect.
All right, Mr. Peduzzi.
Jeff Peduzzi, 2 Scott Road. I'd like to correct a couple things that I've heard tonight. Not all of us are on social media. Not all of us spend hours in front of the television. We've come to expect solid waste recycling, curbside recycling, and I had no idea whatsoever what the override was for. With all the talk of the schools, that's all the focus has been on in this town. So imagine my surprise, I get this warrant, and on Article 8, the revolving account is just gone. How did that happen? How are we not informed about something as significant as curbside? The purple bag thing was beyond pale to begin with. Just taking it out of the budget altogether without most people knowing about it, this is wrong. I would like to move to do whatever smart person can write it up, to revisit Article 8 and just add it in there as if it got deleted accidentally from the Excel spreadsheet. That's simple.
All right, Mr. Francois?
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about this. My question to the select board is, going back to what Kathy Spofford was saying. This revolving account, you have the list, the use of funds is cover the costs of personnel fulfilling public records requests. How exactly does the Board of Selectmen intend to spend those funds in regards to personnel? And then I have a follow-up after that.
Question
Like, are
comes
you-
on the motion with respect to Town Hall Public Records request and the select boards being the persons to spend the funds, I think.
The funds would go into whatever, like if it was planning or land use where the thing came from, if that was the records that were being requested, that's where the funds would go. If it were whoever was fulfilling, whatever department was fulfilling the request, it is that department's time.
Okay. Comments come on the motion? Follow up, Mr. Francois?
So just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, the funds that are collected from the fees in the policy that don't yet exist, so those fees that are collected will go into this revolving account, and then the funds from this revolving account will then be distributed to individual departments based on whatever the public records request was for.
When a public records request comes in, one of the questions is there a charge made to fulfill it? If there is, then that charge is asked of the person making the request. So those are just like at the police station. They have the same sort of revolving account. When someone goes in, the only thing is their requests go just to the police station, so they get to keep it within their budget. When requests come into town hall, it can go to one of many departments. And so whoever fulfills the request is where that would go. But it's not settled yet. However, we do have a public request policy. It's well, if you can get to it, it's online. You used to be able to get to it, but something happened this week, and nobody can do a second link on the website for whatever reason. But that's beyond the point. The point is that is the idea. It's just that the charges aren't necessarily being made when a request comes in, because we're used to having requests to come in for a specific item that you can easily pull out most of the time.
Hold on, we've got other people, we can't just raise your hand and ask a question. We've got other people waiting to ask questions. Gentleman over there.
Brad Hahn, Brown Road, move to question.
All right. Motion been made to move the question. And I heard a second, I think. All right. All right. All those in favor to move the question on Article 9, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. The motion is to adopt a new revolving fund for Town Hall Public Records request for $5,000 spending limit. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. Article 10.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to take no action on Article 10.
Okay. Second. All right, motion's been made to take no action on Article 10. All right, the Selectman explain. Why pass over?
It was passed over because the override failed. So there's no need to vote to appropriate the funds from the override.
Okay, comments? Come on, the motion, since the 2.5 override did not pass, there's no money to appropriate from it. All those in favor of motion to pass over, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds in the Treasury such sums that may be necessary to defray the charges and expenses of the town for the fiscal year 2026 pursuant to a detailed budget totaling an amount. In the warrant, it's printed at $28,761,166. Or take any other sum on line 786, or take any other action in relation thereto. So,
Mr.
we're
Moderator?
ready to deal with the
Am I
budget?
out of order by making a motion to move Article 11 to after Article 19?
No, that's a motion you can make, to take out of order. Okay, motion's been made and seconded to take the articles out of order and to take the budget up after Article 19. All right, anything to be said?
Yeah, Mr. Moderator, I
Yeah.
just want to say that it's the lateness of the hour. I'm surprised we're not just going home and coming back tomorrow, but since we're going to give it a shot, I'd like to, and we know the budget is going to be a lengthy conversation. We've got a few articles left after the budget. I'd like to get those knocked out, and then we can get back to the budget and have that be the big article to talk about, maybe even tomorrow.
Seems eminently reasonable to me. I think we're ready to vote, given the hour. All those in favor of that motion to take articles out of order and to skip over 11 until we get to Article 19. So the next article would be Article 12. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. So Article 12, to see if the town will vote to fix the salaries and compensation of all elected officers of the town as provided by Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 108. Thank you, Ms. King. As amended and as appropriate in this warrant, or take any other action in relation thereto. The slide, I think we might need to skip over this one too, because it does turn on the budget, right?
It's appropriating the elected officials from.
So is there a friendly motion to take this article after 11?
Whatever you want.
I think you're right. I think
Do
we
you
probably...
want to just amend my amendment or my motion to say Articles 11 and 12 after Article 19?
Okay, so I think what we are trying to do, because some of these things are dependent on the budget, I think probably to take things out of order practically, probably we ought to just come back, I think. Yeah, I think so. I think, is there... I think we only have a few articles after the budget, and I think they're largely turn on what happens in the budget. So I think a better motion would be to recess until tomorrow night.
Mr. Moderator?
I just want to ask.
Ms. Kelly?
Can I just ask a question?
Yep.
Do we have to come back tomorrow night, or could we respectfully ask the selectmen to repost a warrant for a few weeks from now to include, so we can have that conversation? You said you can post a warrant and we can meet again in 2 weeks. Does it impact anything if we move it out 2 weeks, this town budget, so that we can discuss what the Board of Health wants, we can vote on that, and then we can fairly look at both budgets as a community? Do we have to come back tomorrow, or can we just
No,
post another budget?
I don't think it's necessary that we have to come back tomorrow, and I would suggest that if we maybe had more time, we would have more ability to reconcile things here. So Is there a motion to recess to Ms. Spofford?
I move that the town, I have to redo this, I guess. I move that the town vote to direct the select board to immediately adjourn and reconvene this meeting in 14 days on Tuesday, May 20th, or a date and time as decided by the town, for the sole purpose of allowing time to engage in good faith negotiations with relevant collective bargaining representatives in order to obtain accurate and complete information regarding union salaries, contract provisions.
Ms. Spofford, I think that motion is out of order. All we can entertain right now is a motion to recess the meeting or adjourn the meeting to a set date, and it turns on where we can meet. So I ask people not to leave yet because we don't know where we're going and what time we're going to be reconvening. The discussion, we all definitely understood that we were not going to get through this all tonight. And so the school is available tomorrow, and I believe it is also available on Thursday. I think that the dynamics of the situation suggest that we could use more time, but I think where we reconvene is up to the selectmen. Hang in there. No, I know. No, we just have to adjourn. But you could propose it. Far enough. Okay, that makes sense. Yep. Do you think 3 weeks? Folks, what we are trying to figure out is to continue the annual town meeting. The special town meeting is already closed, and we can't repost the annual town meeting, but we can adjourn it to another date certain. And what's being discussed is the idea of continuing it to a date far enough out that we could incorporate a new special town meeting at the same time and deal with the revolving fund issues. So, and hopefully come to a better comprehension of the budget entirely. So we're looking at schedules and possibly 3 weeks.
Point of information, Mr. Moderator.
Yep.
I would request, if the select board has no intention of putting this revolving solid use fund on the special town meeting, that we allow enough time to collect the necessary signatures and follow the process to include that on the special town meeting.
My understanding is that the selectmen, if they have 3 weeks, could post a special town meeting for that purpose.
Yes, we will do that.
So you're telling voters there will be an article on that warrant specifically to address the funding of trash through that revolving account?
Yes.
That's what's being suggested. That would make it May 27th. We need a place certain. Does anybody here at the school know whether or not we can use this hall? Not on the 27th?
No, June 18th.
Okay.
June 18th will give us plenty of time to get everything done.
Okay. You want to make a motion?
If it's any consideration, the schools are expecting to
That's a
have their
Wednesday?
budget numbers in 3 to 4 weeks, if we want to have that information before we reconvene our budget discussion.
Hold on. It looks like the hall here isn't available in 3 weeks' time, and it's been proposed that we continue the annual town meeting to June 18th. June 18th, the Wednesday.
They're saying
June
they can do the
18th.
30th.
June 18th is fine.
Well, the selectmen are proposing the 18th. I don't know why someone wants to do it on the 30th, but,
Oh, because you were asking when the school was available next. They were saying May 30th.
oh, that's when this school is available? June 18th?
No.
All right, they're talking about doing it June 18th.
June 18th. We have a joint meeting on May 13th with Board of Health, and the intent is to have a special meeting noticed with a warrant article for a revolving count for the Board of Health.
Thanks.
Hopefully that takes care of our trash issue. Everybody wants trash, by the way. Nobody was against
Okay,
it.
so if the selectmen can make that motion to adjourn this annual town meeting to a date certain in place?
June 18th.
Will you make the motion to adjourn or recess the meeting until June 18th at 7 PM to be held at the North Middlesex High School, right?
Okay.
Is
I'm
that the-
making a motion to adjourn, to recess this meeting to Wednesday, June 18th at 7 PM at the North Middlesex High School auditorium, right here.
All
Is
right.
there a second?
Motion's made and seconded. All right, is there anything to be said? All those in favor of moving to adjourn, say aye. Those opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned till June 18th, 7 PM here at the high school.
Thank you, everyone, for coming, and please remember, we have lots of volunteer positions available.